Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Drivers Colony's first podcast episode ever. Working title right now as Drivers Discourse. Episode number 1, we'll be focusing on backtracks, corpse runs, and runbacks in video games. And the Drivers Discourse podcast in general, from going forward, we'll be discussing intense things in video games, burning topics, old and new, whatever people have been discussing on Reddit, Twitter lately, relevant to games that people play right now, such as, Silksong, Expedition 33, etc., or even retro games. There have been plenty of games of old that are still relevant to this day in terms of video game discussions. But I'm not going to be doing this discussion alone, of course. I'm joined by my friends Prince Waka and Retrorage. What's up, guys?
Hello.
We're all ready to tackle this one. Backtracks.
Talk some smack, talk some trash.
Yeah.
Put out some hate into the world. Yes, sir.
I'll try and, be the voice of reason, someone who's a little bit more middle ground, not going to have
Wow,
too
voice
strong
of
opinions.
reason. What does that make me? The voice of not reason? Oh.
No, you're like chaotic. You're like chaotic neutral, and we love that about you. Like chaotic good or chaotic neutral.
it's like that tweet that's like, I love waffles, and then someone replies, so you don't like pancakes?
Yes, exactly.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, speaking of which, what we're going to be talking about first is, well, of course, none other than backtracking. I've listed out the topics on the display that you guys see if you're watching it through video. And of course, any of you that are watching through audio only, we appreciate you also. This episode, after we finish here discussing here, will go up on YouTube as well as YouTube Music, so that those of you that love getting your podcast from YouTube Music can watch at your convenience. Watch or listen at your convenience. All right. Well, we've got a great deal to talk about today. Man, a lot of it's kind of relevant to games that have come out recently as well, because Silksong has been pretty ripe in our minds lately, hasn't it?
It has been. I've been playing it. Admittedly, I have not played it for like a week or a week and a half because I need to get doing other things. Like I've been enjoying the game far too much, but I have my thoughts with it. Like I have my thoughts. I'll let you know, once the time comes.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, speaking of thoughts, Zenryoku was also planning on joining us, but unfortunately couldn't make it today. So we will have some thoughts that he recorded for us to share as well. And again, we really appreciate your recording it so that we can still have you join along in the conversation and the fun. But yeah, first things first. So what is backtracking in a video game? I guess we should establish like what we mean by backtracking. Backtracking
I was
is
about to say we should.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, continue. Sorry.
Oh no, it's all good.
You got it.
Yeah. Backtracking is like when, let's say you've traversed a path in a game, or even in real life, theoretically, right? Like you've traversed a path, and for whatever reason, you need to retraverse that path in order to make further progress later on in the game, or in your adventures or whatever. A perfect example of it is the classic Metroid backtrack, where you've gone down the first corridor that's in Green Brinstar, and you gather, let's say, I don't know, the map room, right? You're able to see everywhere on the map in Brinstar, but then you got to eventually go back to some of those rooms that are connected, because you won't be able to open all the doors right away. It's a prime example. And of course, there's also a section in the lower part of that corridor that requires another ability, power bombs, which you get a little bit later as well. So the game expects you to retrace your steps, revisit that area, and explore further where you're able to, once you acquire the necessary means of being able to do so. So how is this relevant to the overarching conversation? Well, recently, the folks among our friend group have been kind of reflecting on the meaningfulness of backtracking in a video game, and whether it is in fact a waste of time, or whether the time spent backtracking offers a meaningful addition to like the enjoyment of the gameplay experience. And man, it's a contentious one, I'll say. I know, Waka, you got plenty to mention about backtracking from a game you've played that came out a long time ago. Would you like to share any of that?
64, funny simian monkey game, but well, more about that later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so first things first. I'll mention what I have to say about backtracking, and it's with regards to bosses. Now, I know this ties pretty closely to runbacks, but I'm not going to spill all of the beans right away because I do want to save a little bit for the actual central point I'll make when we talk about runbacks, as the community calls them, of course. But backtracks, in my opinion, should always have something that offers the player progress as part of the backtrack they're making, because otherwise it's just retracing the steps because you just want to extend the playtime, I guess, right? Usually when the player has to backtrack, it's because there's no other fast means of getting back to the point where they need to make further progress from. For example, a lot of games have fast travel, right? And the whole purpose of fast travel is to allow the player to get back to a spot from which they've already done the hard work of traversing, or the hard work of platforming, or the hard work of figuring out where to go from that spot. And you're basically giving the player the reward of, hey, you've already done this. We're not going to waste your time further. We're going to give you the fast travel to get back there immediately, right? So why would a game, therefore, have a player do a manual backtrack if they've already done the bulk of the hard work? I mean, after all, Bethesda games give you spot fast travel where you can pretty much go to any point on the map as soon as you've explored like the I don't know how they call it exactly in the Bethesda games, but it's basically like you've gone within the radius of the detection zone for that spot, and it like unlocks that warp spot for you to be able to go to at anytime when you open the map. But again, why would a developer make a player redo a traversal? Well, a lot of the times when a developer makes a player redo a traversal, it's because there's another opportunity at rewards that they previously missed along that traversal, or there's more like narrative that needs to be communicated when they do that traversal. Let's say there's like a cutscene trigger that happens when they've specifically done that traversal with a certain item in their inventory or whatever. Or let's say that there's a cutscene that takes place after another event they fulfilled long after they've done the first traversal. Happens when they redo the traversal again, or whatever else might be the reason, right? There might be a specific point to that, and maybe after they've done the cutscene trigger, it teleports them to like the spot they actually need to go to, right? Maybe the game even tells you straight up that you need to go back here because they give you a waypoint. A lot of modern games just straight up give you the waypoint and say go back here. We've been blind racing Halo C among ourselves. Rest in peace. Oh my goodness.
It'll return. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. It'll return.
Hopefully. When we have the chance, we'll try to make sure to mention, hey, Halo C backtracks are peak. But Halo C has a couple of backtracks you do within the missions, and a lot of those backtracks have enemies along the way, right? So it's like, hey, escape out of here after you fulfilled your mission. But the reason why they're making you manually escape is because like enemies are infiltrating you as you're trying to make your way back. So it's like it's so-called meaningful backtrack, right? Where it's like something is happening rather than it just being the same gameplay or the same dual traversal that you've already done, right? There's meaning added to it, or like a narrative element added to it. However, what happens when a game makes the player redo the backtrack for no other reason than you messed up, do it again? How do we feel about that, guys? Like, I'll give you a strong example of it. Let's say you're playing a 90s platformer, and every time you die, you have to restart the whole level. And there's no lives, there's no idea of continues, you just redo the whole level when you die. How do we feel about that?
I say you gotta get good. That reminds me of trying to get to actually the EX stages in Super Monkey Ball 1. You see, if you fail even just once, even though there's like, I think you start with 3 lives, even just once, you are locked out of getting into extra expert stages. So how I see a situation like that where you're penalized for just dying once, that gives me an incentive to get better at the game and gives me reason and challenge to do that. But at the same time, it can cause great frustration if, like, I don't know, you're close to the end of the level, and then you mess up and then whoops, you gotta start right over. There have been times when I was younger, I have raged. Like, funny I bring up Monkey Ball, but Monkey Ball, for example, not necessarily one life challenge per se. This time when I was younger, but I got a game over towards the end of the challenge run, and there were times when it doesn't feel good. But overall, me personally, I think it's an incentive to make you better at the game, and because of that incentive, it helps me be better at the game because I don't want to do that run back, that backtrack. I don't want to retread this challenge again and want to actually overcome it. But at the same time, it can be very frustrating if you're close to the end or you're close to the end of that stage and then you die to, whoops, you gotta do that over again.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take.
Yeah,
but that's like in the...
Yeah, I kind of snuck in the run back point. Yeah, I know Retrorage, you're about to say that. Go ahead.
I noticed that too, yes.
I was going to say that, but Super Monkey Ball is like a bad example, in my opinion. If we're going to talk about runbacks and like this backtrack idea where you're doing things over again, because Super Monkey Ball is like an arcade game. Like, the game is designed to be played over and over again. You can replay stages, you can keep doing it, right? And for the challenge runs, I don't remember exactly what you mean by challenge run.
I meant challenges, and that's what the game mode is called. It's called challenge. It's basically the arcade mode. That's why I said challenge run. I should have made that clear.
It's you do all the stages at one time, right? Versus
one after the other.
Stage. Okay, so that's exactly what I mean, right? Because Monkey Ball is this other mode where you just do ILs, where you just go into the stage and do it, right? So if you wanted to practice a certain stage in the challenge mode, you can. Right, because I know Super Monkey Ball has those random stages where it's just whack and it's doing random things. Well, it's not necessarily random, but it's definitely a whack stage that consistency is a question mark.
Replay it again to figure it out and actually be consistent at it. It feels random at first,
but there's a practice mode theoretically for these things in that game, right? Versus these other things, these other games that are putting these oh, you die, do it all over again. I can't just pause, go to that section that I'm messing up on, and keep trying it over again so that when I do get there, I can do it, one time, right? So when you bring up Super Monkey Ball, I was I don't think this is a good comparison to make.
I guess I was trying modern to games compare because as far as I know, there's no let's just say retro Donkey Kong game or retro Mario game or something like that where it's you die and then you need to I would say start over from
World 1.
Beginnings. Yeah, from World 1 or doing stuff like that. That I was trying to think of something that's kind of similar to the challenge that Cruci just
let me clarify something. What do we mean by do these things quantify as backtracking, those old games where you you have to use a password to input to get those quote unquote checkpoints, otherwise you have to do it from stage 1? Is that really a backtrack?
Okay, I should clarify. That's probably more so falling under what the community calls runback. That's the thing with these two terms, a little bit nebulous.
Yes.
I feel backtrack is more general, whereas people apply the runback word to specifically when you mess up and you have to start over from some point that you've already done before. If you, let's say you beat stage 1 already, you do stage 2, I don't know, you die somewhere, it makes you do stage 2 again. Oh, you die 3 times. Okay, start from the beginning of the game again. That's probably runback. But there are certain cases where the game regardless makes you do I don't know, let's say it could still be a mistake you made that causes you to backtrack, because let's say you fall down a pit. There's a couple Castlevania games that have this. You fall down a pit, it takes you back to a lower part of the level, and you have to retraverse from that lower part of the level back up.
The clock tower.
Yes.
Clock tower kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I would definitely call it a backtrack, personally.
That's definitely a backtrack or a run back. Kind of both in a way.
Yeah, I guess we should probably figure out how to establish the difference, right? Is it a player mistake that's causing you to retraverse, or is it like the game that's forcing you to retraverse without any meaningful means of like taking you through it to like give you actual progress, as opposed to just, you know, making you redo it because padding, right? Do we feel comfortable with that distinction?
I do. I feel comfortable.
Yeah, it
with
makes
that
sense.
distinction, and
Okay.
also I agree a lot with Retrorage. I was just trying to grasp at straws to have like an example, like an actual example that's kind of close to that, because like unless if you're doing a challenge, like a pure challenge run where you only have one life and you're doing a hard stage, there isn't that many games that come to mind. The only thing that came close was like doing like a hard arcade mode, challenge mode run for Monkey Ball. And if you die once, you're completely locked out of going to the extra stage, which are the harder stages in that mode, and you need to go through a 50 stage gauntlet.
Wow.
I know, crazy, but but that was like the closest I can think of. But I do agree with Retrorage. It's probably not the best example, because it's like a series of stages you need to do, and it's arcadey, so it's like very quick, snappy each stage, and there is a practice mode where you can practice each and every one of those stages so you can master them. I just want to make it clear that I do agree with Retrorage. It's probably not the best example.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's still an example nonetheless, and I think it still sets the stage for like other things that we might want to explore further down the line in this episode. Because one thing I was thinking about too is, does giving a practice mode excuse more egregious cases of backtrack padding that games might have? Because when we played Circle Dash Dash Circle, we did the blind race thing last year.
Oh boy, I heard the horror stories. But continue.
Yeah, that game is pretty brutal with how it makes you retraverse things. There's some forced retraversal too, because sometimes you have to like clear. I can't remember exactly the parameters for it, but you have to like clear a part of the level and then retrace your steps to like revisit a part that was previously closed. I think that's like a perfect example of backtracking, but that's also a case where the backtrack still has like threats, because there's all these like enemies that pseudo randomly spawn as you're like making your way through the level. And part of why that game is extremely frustrating is that when you lose all your lives, you're starting from like square zero again, or square one again. Like,
oh dang, that's punishing. Oh my.
Yeah, and that game has or when we last played it, it has no practice mode at all. So you're learning like, you know, in the trenches. Like you're learning like a speedrunner basically. Like you have to perform the game from start to finish in like basically one session. And that is honestly pretty brutal. Like your game better be pretty fair, or like hold up well, in order to be appealing to enough people to like sit through that, right? Because otherwise it's just going to be like unnecessarily fun, or unnecessarily unfun.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. And I actually have a comparison of two recent metroidvanias I've been playing, in the background, as I've been, busy with my life. I've been playing these two ones. But when the time comes, I'll mention them.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, the other thing is too, there's a couple of older arcade games, and the point Retrorage brought up about arcade games specifically is actually pretty relevant, because a lot of arcade games were focused on like making the player like spend more money for credits, right, in order to clear the game.
Exactly. They were trying to zap money away from you.
Yeah, exactly. And also they want to cycle in and out as many people as possible, because that's how you make the most money. Like if someone has like a long session with their one credit, then that you're making less money. Just
that would be me if there was a Monkey Ball arcade cabinet that I could find.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, and they don't want to do like a dumb time limit, because that would just be like unreasonable. I mean, they do that for training mode, but training mode is like where you have all the free space in the world to like just mess around in the game and get better at it, right? So it's reasonable that they set a time limit to training mode. But the funny thing is, a lot of arcade games reward you for being better at the game, like in terms of your money. Like you can spend less money if you can make it farther with your one credit. And if you can make it farther with your one credit, you can also backtrack less, or like redo sections less. But to begin with, a lot of arcade games don't make you redo sections if you credit feed. Like let's say you lose all your lives, they usually allow you to continue straight from where you died if you put in the credit quickly enough, right? and
Sure.
it's to kind of compel you to make an impulsive decision or split decision on whether you want to beat the game because you felt like, you know, like if they took a cheap shot at one of your lives and it's like, rage credit, you know, like you put in another coin out of a fit of rage, or, you know, you're like, that was cheap, you know, I can beat this game. There's nothing else this game has. It's cheap. It's not actually hard. And then you put in more money and try to beat it, right? That kind of thing works well for arcade games because they're not that long to begin with, and they don't force you to do any further backtracking than necessary, since they want to like get another person on the cabinet as soon as possible, right? Because that's how they make the most
Also,
money.
it's like rapid drip feeding you with dopamine. Like
Mhm.
arcade games, it's pretty quick. Like, you know, like just say fighting games, the matches, they're very quick. Monkey
Mhm.
Ball, the stage, it's very quick. Shmups, although I haven't played Shmups in such a long time, the one I got really into when I was a kid was Shikigami no Shiro 2 with my sister. But I don't remember those stages lasting, you know, terribly long. They're you know, drip feeding you a lot of dopamine, so like each and every stage is pretty quick, and if you replay those stages, it's really not that big of a deal, and you might be going for I don't know, better score, better time, and you don't really notice it.
Yeah, it's like arcade games are definitely one of those genres where like the better you get at the games, the less, not only is like less money you're putting in, but it also takes you less time for each time that you play, because like just inherently you're not going to spend as much time dying, meaning you're not going to spend as much time needing to respawn or needing to regather weapons. Like in Metal Slug, for example, when you die you lose all the weapons you had at the time, and a lot of the weapons in Metal Slug are really powerful. However, they do give you like a pity, what is it, pity machine gun when you die. So if you lost out on, let's say, or is it when you die or when you continue? Might be when you continue. But if you are like bad enough, then they'll still let you get through the game so that they can get the next person on the cabinet, right? But even for the home console version of the game, you're not really spending that much time like redoing a section that you die to over and over, unless you're trying to go for that one credit clear. And before, like, this is something relevant to what Zenryoku sent us for his recording. So before I go ahead and play that, do any of you have any further thoughts on that you'd like to expand upon?
Um,
No, we
not
can-
that I can think of.
All right, let me go ahead and give a play of Zenryoku's recording, and we really appreciate it again, Zenryoku. Sorry that you couldn't be with us today, but here it is.
Honestly, perfect segue too.
Hello, gamers. If you're listening to this message, it means either I have delayed the Halo blind race again, or I'm not able to make it to the podcast session for Driver's Discourse. In either case, I'm deeply sorry. I hope to join you all at one point in the future or another. But for now, I must give you this voice memo as my representation. So, when it comes to shmups, in the context of backtracking and all that fun stuff you and the other popular metroidvania kids are talking about, I think an interesting way to look at it is through the lens of a shmup. So a lot of, usually like IGN reviewers, they'll take a look at a shmup, they'll credit feed through it, which means like once you die you just put in a credit and you continue from where you left off, and they'll go all the way to the credits, and that'll probably take them like about 30 minutes or so of time, and then their primary complaint is going to be that the game is too short. Well, I'd argue that they haven't really finished the game yet, because the point of the game is for it to be replayed over and over again so that you're able to play it and beat it all the way through on one credit. The 1cc or one credit clear is a sort of milestone for a lot of arcade gamers, both before and during the current age of internet and everything. And it's through this lens of trying to beat it all in one go that I think backtracking can be a lot more interesting. And I think we can take some lessons from that and apply it to some other games. So let's say, like in a 5-stage shmup, I consistently die in stage 4, to the boss in stage 4. So the next time I try to run through it all the way through to get my 1 credit clear, it's not just about me trying to get farther than last time. It's also about me trying to score better than last time, because a lot of these shmups, they'll incentivize you to engage with the scoring mechanics, because scoring well will give you rewards like extra lives and such, which will in turn help your survivability. So even if your initial goal is just to beat the game, get a 1cc, and you don't care about score, as it turns out, in like a good shmup or a good game, it'll make you want to engage with the game so that you can get those benefits, just so you can get to your minimum goal of beating the game. And in that process, you learn the game more deeply and you can appreciate it more, and you get a little bit better every time. Especially something with shmups, like, there's like a practically infinite space for like, there are a lot of games where like Ketsui, where you'll get more points the closer you are to an enemy when you destroy it. So maybe there's like a few enemies that you don't optimize on one run. Next run you can optimize it, do some more risky strategies, and that gives you more room to breathe later. So by like, choosing where you want to push in all your chips and when to play it safe, while also consistently trying to get better at all these micro decisions that will hopefully all add up to you getting farther than your last personal best, makes backtracking and shmups ideally pretty engaging. One pitfall of this, though, is if the shmup's earlier stages are really easy, and this will tend to happen with like, some shmups. I don't know enough to like name some like super confidently, but in my experience with Crimson Clover and Ketsui, I found like the first stage and some of like the second stages to be like that, where like it's easy enough so that you're incentivized to like keep playing and put in quarters, because these games were like arcade games initially, right? So they want to give you at least like 1 or 2 stages of play before it really gets hard on you in stage 3. So that makes those stages like much easier than the later stages. So them being easier gives less for you to master and less for you to improve on. Or at least your optimizations, like, yeah, they can be like practically infinitely optimized, but how much you improve is usually much smaller, like over each run or each session in those easier stages compared to the harder stages. And because there's that almost like plateauing feeling of improving for some of the easier stages earlier on in a run, then that's when this backtracking can get boring. Oh, Blue Revolver is another example. Like the first stage is like it puts me to sleep. That's the only part I didn't like about grinding for the 1cc for that Blue Revolver hyper mode. So that's one thing I didn't like about it. I wish I could just fast forward the first stage, and that is like the kind of backtracking that I kind of see most often in Soulslikes, where like you don't really gain anything or get better in like a meaningful way by doing these backtracks or runbacks. Sorry, I meant to use runback the whole time, not backtrack. So like, for Dark Souls, you're trying to run back to a boss. You can just run past everyone most of the time, right? So that's just like a waste of time to me. But if you were forced to engage with certain enemies in a certain way, and there's like room for you to improve each time, or there are like opportunities for you to prepare for the boss, ideally that like can't be skipped but are also fun, fun just to do but also fun to get better at, then the run back can be acceptable to me. So that like is the summary of my my thoughts on runbacks in the context of shmups and how that fits into like runbacks with Soulslikes and etc. I hope that wasn't too rambly. I hope that mostly made sense. And yeah, I hope you guys have some things to go off of from that. And sorry again I couldn't join you. Hope you all have a great time. Thanks for having me. Hope to join you next time. And wishless bootsies.
True.
Coming soon on Steam.
Yes, you guys should wishless bootsies. I'll make sure to put a link to the Steam page in the description. But yeah,
sponsored by Bootsies.
Bootsies ambassador. Yeah, no, I mean, well said. I mean,
Wasteland
actually,
was really good. Well said.
yeah,
Well said.
I actually feel like there's like a lot of tie-ins there to like just all the topics that we're covering today. But
Yeah, and yeah, that's like well, I'll let you go Cruci, I'll let you go Cruci, but I have things to say.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, in a shmup, like a lot of the things that you're redoing in a stage is not necessarily like for an in-game reward to like further make you progress. It's like to make you as like a player and your skill progress, you know? And
Exactly.
that
You
way,
want to mastery. You want to have mastery
Mhm.
over the stage mechanics. Like it's a different kind of pursuit.
yeah, and I feel like that's like the like that's just like the DNA of like all arcade games. Like whenever you have to like redo a section, it's not because like, oh, they're making you do it so that you can gather this power up that allows you to progress further, or like, some narrative or whatever. Like, you're redoing it so that you can get better and so that you can spend like less credits or so that you can get a higher score. Like, just optimize your gameplay, right? So like there's a different aim, there's a different goal from like your traditional single player game that you probably bought for your home console, or you're probably looking to like spend loads of time in the immersion of the world or whatever. You're not necessarily looking to like replay like 50 billion times to get better at the game necessarily, right? It's more so that,
If you're a speedrunner.
well, yeah, if you're a speedrunner, it's a different story, and that's like a whole conversation of its own. But like if I'm just thinking of like even like a Zelda backtrack, right? Like Link to the Past and like all the older Zeldas in general, like they have backtracking that you do in order to like make further progress with an item that you most recently acquired, or even like a Mario 64 type of game. Like let's say you got a pickup, and that pickup allows you to like, I don't know, what's a good Mario 64 example, because you guys have played it before.
Oh, like pick up like a good example of backtrack. Like you need to revisit like a stage. Like I just want to make it
Or
clear,
like even
like,
within a stage, like just within a stage, you retracing your steps after like, you know, you fulfilled a condition. Like maybe you've gotten like the red coins or something that allow for a pathway to be opened up.
oh
And you
yeah,
have to retrace your
you know,
steps.
you need to then visit this area to pick up the star. Like you explored there, you found all the red coins, and then the red coin star appears in a designated spot. So then you need to either find it or revisit that area.
Yeah, yeah. Like those things are like for the in-game purpose, right? Like it's not like you're not like retracing your steps because, oh, I need to get better or whatever. you know, like
No,
maybe,
you're trying to complete the objective, if that makes sense. It's like you're trying to complete the objective.
yeah, and I guess like the argument there is that should Mario 64 just have waypoint fast travel in order to get you to complete the objective more quickly, or is the way it does it like completely fine? Like, how do we
Okay,
feel about that?
this is it's not so much backtrack, it's more like quality of life, but this was fixed in Mario Odyssey and some other newer 3D platformers such as like Banjo-Kazooie or Donkey Kong 64, but Donkey Kong 64 has some of the worst backtracks. I'll talk about that a bit later.
Yeah.
But they fixed this specific aspect is when you collect a star other than the 100 coin star in Mario 64, you are booted out of the stage, so you need to then jump back into the portrait, select your mission, then you were plot back into the stage, and then you need to go back to where you were before.
Okay, excellent, perfect.
That is
Yeah.
that is like I don't know, man. Yeah, I guess you could see that as a backtrack, but that is something I really wish wasn't RC4. You could just continue grabbing those stars without being booted out.
Yeah, and they're making you redo parts of the level in order to get back to the other stars and whatnot, right? So
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, I mean that is exactly what I'm talking about. Like in order to make further progress, like you have to redo something you've already done. I guess that could be looked at as like a quality of life feature, but maybe even looking at it as like a quality of life feature is downplaying the importance of having like meaningful time spent in a backtrack in general. Because
Mhm.
after all, it is still gameplay. It's not like having stuff that reduces the backtrack time removes from immersion. I mean, unlike how some devs might have you believe, which we'll get to that in a second here.
If anything, it breaks you out of an immersion, if that makes sense. Because you're booted out of the level, then you need to jump back in, select the mission, and then go back into it. If anything, it breaks it a little bit.
Yeah.
With how Marcy Swear has it.
And it starts to bellow some frustration a little bit, right? Like it's like, oh man, I have to. I was planning on getting the star here, and then I was forced out of my own volition to be removed from the level before.
Okay, we're kind of taking Mario 64 out of context now.
Are we now?
As you've never played Mario 64, so
okay.
Let me add some more information.
Yeah.
Let me add some more information.
Come on now, yeah, go for it.
That has not been said.
Okay.
So in Mario 64, the world can change. Yes, there might be some repeat parts, but like the world can have some changes, right? Depending on which mission you select. So when you are going back into the world, but it's more exploratory because changes have happened to the world. Now, if we compare this to a typical Metroidvania, in the Metroidvania, my guess, I'm pretty sure for most Metroidvanias, is the world doesn't change. That lava pool has always been there, right? When you get your lava armor, you just go back to the lava pool, right? That you already saw. So the world isn't changing. It's already there. You make a mental note and then you come back to it, right? Versus in Mario 64, depending on what level you choose, what mission you choose, if you, for example, like the Swamp Fortress or whatever, if you beat the swamp on the top, a little tower spawns in replacement of the boss, right? The first mission was the boss, and then from then on, instead of having an empty space on the top, there's like this little tower or some minor or major changes happen in the level, right? So in the backtrack for Mario 64, yes, it's a backtrack, but you're looking for changes. You're exploring the world to see, in this mission, what's different, right? What do I have to do, right? Because the mission is not always clear based on the title. So you're kind of like, it's more exploratory in that sense and less of a, waste your time, go back, do this thing, right? Kind of idea. I just wanted to add that context because we're talking about Mario 64 backtracks. You're doing the same thing over again. Sometimes you are doing the same thing, but the objective is shifted.
It depends on the star. It really depends on the star, and that is very true what Retrorage said. Like, that's a good example with Swamp Fortress. Star number 2, I believe, is like once you immediately got the first one, which is like you defeat like King Womp, like the giant Womp, whatever he's called. Then for the second star and onwards, like when you select it from the mission, like the star selection screen for the missions is replaced with like this tower, and if you climb that tower, then you get a new star. So yeah, that's very true. Like there's plenty of stars where you can, like, the world changes, like the world itself actually changes, but at the same time there's plenty of stars where you could conceivably get it all in one go because they're all loaded in that stage. Like a good example would be, I'll use Swamp Fortress as an example. You could, kill Swamp, get that star. You can then go shoot, do that one where you need to shoot into a corner with a cannon. Like this part of this fortress, you shoot it, it breaks, and if star fires up, you can get that star. And then you could get the red coin star, and then after that, you could then get another star where you need to like shoot I think it's like you shoot yourself in the cannon. I usually do it the way you're not really supposed to, which is actually like triple jump, then wall jump, and then get into this like small platform, and then like get the star that way. But point is, you could get that star as well. That's like 4 stars you can already get within one single session. But since each and every time when you collect one of the stars, you're booted out of the stage, then you need to reload that stage each and every time. And that's like a little bit of a pace breaker in my opinion.
Okay, but like, we are coming. I feel like that's coming from the context of people who've like played the game and are replaying it, right? But if you think about like a first playthrough, Mario 64 is designed so that the stars are placed on different sections of the map, usually, right? They're spread out. So when you go back into the level, like you aren't necessarily going back the same path. You're focusing on different parts of the area in the map. Guys, I don't speedrun Mario 64, but I actually do love the game. Right?
Oh, okay.
It's a great
So,
game. I love the game.
like,
I 100% agree.
I think that it's like it's different in the sense that yes, you're exploring the same level, but every time you go back into the painting, you focus on a different area, which means like the backtrack is like so much like less on your mind, right? Versus typical games where you fall in the pit and then you have to go back and do it again, right? You're like doing the same thing over and over again, right? And Mario 64 does have a little bit of that with like Rainbow Cruise and stuff, right?
I
Where
can't
you're like,
believe
oh
you
yeah,
didn't
you
mention
fall
that.
you
That's a
fall
huge
off in
backtrack.
Rainbow Cruise, and
that's
then
a
you have to
huge one,
sit
yeah.
on the auto scroller. And I'll admit that level, I hated that level. Right?
It's an
I hated that
auto-scroll, and
level.
there's plenty of stars you need to get to by riding those car race, and that's an egregious example of like if you get kicked out and then you need to replay that section.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Right,
I
the
can't believe
clock
I didn't bring that
tower,
up.
Rainbow Cruise. Those are examples of levels where I'm
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, Mario 64 kind of sucks, right? But like, besides the fact that those levels where it's kind of like suspect, where it's like, oh yeah, this kind of sucks. I think that Mario 64 does a really good job of like letting the player just explore. It feels more exploratory than some of these Metroidvanias that are coming out. You know what I'm saying? And like, I'm just we're not on the Metroidvanias yet, but I'm just putting it out there. I'm already throwing out that those are my left jabs.
Oh, we're
I'm
getting there.
prepping for the
No,
big
like
right.
I agree with Retrorage. It's very exploratory, and it's like I think of it as like very much like a good example of like a sandbox kind of game. Like if that makes sense, where you go to a stage and then you go and do an objective, and you can even do stars out of order if you don't want to get certain stars, you can then go to a different level because you've probably gotten enough stars to go to a different level, and you can just go to that
More
stage,
non-linear
explore.
than Metroidvania.
No, it's pretty non-linear. No. It's actually it's like, let's just say like some of these Metroidvanias, most of them are pretty. Well, I probably shouldn't blanket say that without thinking every single one of them, but there's a good portion that are definitely non-linear and very exploratory heavy. But Mario 64 is like even more non-linear exploratory than like even like let's just say Metro Fusion.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad we've course corrected in our discourse here. And actually thinking about it, like I think what both of you have said still kind of proves that if you have a player retrace their steps in a way that provides meaningful like forward progress towards their goal, which is, it could be out of the game, it could be in the game, but towards a goal, then that's where it feels like a lot better than, oh, the player just has to do it over again because they messed up or something, or because the game is just wasting their time. Like, I still feel like the wasting the time point and the messing up point could still be distinguished from each other, but it's the same negative feelings around it, right? Zenryoku also said something else that I found interesting, which is that when the thing you're redoing is not as when it's not as difficult, or when it's not as engaging, then that's when it feels much worse. Because he was mentioning like the earlier levels of I can't remember exactly the shmup that he pointed out as the example, is like Crimson Clover or Blue Revolver, one of those. But when those levels are a bit easier, I mean, usually the early levels are easy to ease a new player into it and also give them a little bit of effort to fun for the credit that they put into the arcade cab. But if you're redoing those levels for a better score, or for the potential at a 1cc, which is a 1 credit clear, then yeah, doing those levels can be a bit laborious. And I actually think that the fact that those games allow for you to accumulate more lives, and also don't necessarily have like some like in-game secret weapon that you're collecting from those early levels, or in-game like something that just like makes in-game progress from having done those levels again, but rather something that like makes you better, or makes you have a better shot at getting farther. I think those things feel much better in general. Like if you, like, for example, when you score higher, you get a 1-up, and then the more 1-ups you accumulate, the farther you can make it potentially on your 1 credit that you spent. Or even, if you make it super far without dying, then you get more content, right? Such as a secret boss. However, of course, if you want to fight the secret boss again, you have a longer path back to it that you have to do, and it's much more difficult because you have to play more cleanly. I don't know if our Mario 64s or our Metroidvanias have exactly an analogous example to that, which again, that's part of that is just definitely like the arcade design and the arcade experience being much different from a lot of modern home console games. But it's still, I think, still getting a read on like how we as the player feel in those situations helps us to understand like their similarities and their differences. So yeah, I just wanted to mention like, yeah, I think what he said was definitely on the money. And again,
I think spot on too, and very insightful. Like I agree with everything that Zenryoku has said. Thinking about it, like I think it's very good, good analysis.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a great point to like transition towards the aching topic of today's episode, which is runbacks proper, and specifically in Metroidvanias and soulslikes and other related action games. Now, oh man, where do we even begin? Okay, I personally have some I personally have some negative opinions to air off, and I want to get them off out of the way so that we can talk about more positive things as a way of ending on a positive note.
I'll bring the positive, so don't you worry about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, hey, we have some good balance in our podcast crew here, so no issues with that.
And hey, also, I just want to make it clear, I really don't mind, playing through, like jumping into the portal, painting, mission selection, and then going back to where I was before too much about in Mario 64. I'm just saying sometimes I wish it was, like that. I could just boom, 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 get some stars. But I personally really don't mind it because it really doesn't take that long.
Yeah, I mean, also as Retrorage said, if you're offered the opportunity to explore a different part of the level when you re-enter it, then you're still getting meaningful progress. It's not like it's just like, like, oh, you're doing the level again for the like up to the same part where you got the star, except for the star that's like right next to it or whatever.
Usually the stars are in separate locations, so you're typically going to be exploring other areas anyways.
And for that matter, for our next topic, runbacks, let's first just talk about like what's a runback, right? Like we kind of mentioned in the beginning of the episode already, but I want to specify it a bit better. So the way community uses runbacks is describe the retraversal you have to do from a checkpoint or a save point to a roadblock that you're encountering. And I want to say roadblock because it can be a boss, it could be a gauntlet, it could be a platforming challenge, it could be honestly anything. Point being, you make a mistake, you restart from the checkpoint that you last used or last had, and you got to redo everything from that checkpoint up to the roadblock that you're encountering. And I think it's also worth establishing what potential roadblocks are there that are that prompts a runback in a video game. Well, there's the most obvious one, a boss, and even within the boss, I think there's two types of bosses that have their own set of like runback types, but we'll get to that. But there's a boss, there's a gauntlet, which is like a locked room.
Yeah.
Yep, like a locked room where you have to fight enemies in waves. Platforming or parkour challenge where you have to do like a sequence of movement or whatever in order to get through a section. Or alternatively, there's an auto scroller which can combine anything that I mentioned previously or have its own elements where you're just supposed to basically escape from like a wall of death that moves. Personally, if I have to give my least favorite form of roadblock in that situation, I'd say auto scroller. But auto scroller is probably the one that takes the least reattempts, which is interesting because auto scroller typically is like gameplay that just like it doesn't really require much activity from the player itself, as long as they maybe like, I'm thinking of like a Mirror's Edge auto scroller where, you hop on the train and you like dodge left, dodge right, duck, like like that kind of
some rhythm game action stuff, rhythm game stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, that kind of auto scroller, or like, an auto scroller in Kirby, right, where you just like jump a few times, you smash an enemy that's in your way, and you jump from like some water that's rising or whatever. Like, requires very little engagement from the player. those tend to be the easiest ones, but those also tend to be the ones that require the fewest number of reattempts. However, for the single attempt, those can take a long time. Not necessarily will take a long time, but can take a long time. And the amount of time is typically out of the player's control because, again, it's an auto scroller, right? It's basically a set amount of time that is taken. And if anything, a player that has to reattempt it will always try to look for reducing the amount of time that an auto scroller takes as much as they can possibly do. And keep that idea in mind, because that's going to be something that we re-evoke when we're talking about corpse runs. But for now, just have that planted in the back of your mind. So I mentioned auto scroller. There's also platforming challenges, which again, usually there's like a set sequence of how to do it in order to clear it quickly. However, there's a lot of engagement from the player because, you know, perhaps it involves some of the movement techniques they've acquired throughout the course of the game. Or it doesn't even have to be platforming per se. It can just be like, you know, running through terrain. You know, in a 3D game, you might have to climb up a mountain. Avoid enemies. Yeah. You might have to swim. You might have to manage your stamina, you know. Like those kind of things can also fall under the same thing. But basically not an auto-scroller, right? Like you're just getting through a section, kind of. Then there's gauntlets or locked rooms or however you want to call it, where you have to fight a set number of waves of enemies. And typically the enemies are enemies you've seen already in the game. But because they're presented in combination, it's supposed to present a more notable challenge than seeing the enemies in isolation. And these are quite often used in 2D games. And of course, Zelda used this quite a bit in the past. A lot of rooms you re-enter, in fact, or a lot of rooms you enter lock behind them, and then there's like a puzzle you have to figure out, or there's like an enemy that spawns like from behind like a statue or whatever, and you have to kill it, and then the room's open again, right? Or maybe there's enemies that spawn, and then you have to kill them all, and the room's open again. So those gauntlets, not really worth calling them gauntlets. I mean, you know, because they're not really that long or anything, right? They're simple, you know, locked rooms. You clear them, you move on. It's just that every time you re-enter the room, you have to clear it again, typically. Whereas for gauntlets, you know, waves of enemies, you clear them all. Usually after you've cleared them all, it clears, and it's like you took down a boss. Like they're gone forever, right? But again, it's used as a roadblock nonetheless. And we're not going to talk about how we feel about gauntlets specifically, because that's not the topic of this podcast, but perhaps we can revisit gauntlets as a concept itself in a future episode. And then the last roadblock, bosses. And this is why I'm saving it for last, because this is what we're going to segue into. 2 types of bosses, I feel like. And if any of you have further ideas on what a boss might look like, or a boss type might look like, feel free to add on. But what I've denoted them as is environmental bosses, where basically the boss's presence is like a smaller portion of a larger environment that they're in. And usually they're integrated as like a seamless part of the world, right? And they usually are not like a major story, thematic, or progression roadblock, but they do present like some kind of blockage of progress from the player. And it's like maybe a boss that you encounter just like in the open world, perhaps. Like if I'm thinking like an MMORPG, you know, you have some of these like world bosses that are just there, like you can see them from super far away. And after you run into them, like you're trapped in their space and you have to take them down, right? Kind of thing. But it's not like a progress blockage or anything. Like sometimes in those 3D open world games, you can skip past them, or you don't even have to fight for any sort of progress, but fighting them gives you like a reward or some sort of unblockage from your progression. And the other type of boss is like a major boss. I didn't have a better name for this, but if you guys can think of one, feel free to say so. But these are like
Major's good. I think Major's good.
Yeah.
Good name. That's what I would have came up with too.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. So these are like key bosses that guard like a major progression in the game and serve as like turning points. And a lot of attention is usually drawn to them. They're usually set up narratively. Maybe you see them early on in the game and they're friendly to you, and then later on you fight them. Or perhaps even they're hostile to you right away, but then they say like this was just a spar, and you know you encounter them for real later on or something. But regardless, it's to create spectacle. Usually they try to trim away all the distractions from the boss, and you know it's you and the boss, and you have to beat it, otherwise you cannot make progress, right? So the reason why we're trying to set apart these 2 types of bosses is because I do think that these 2 types of bosses have runbacks that are associated with them that developers typically are drawn to. For the environmental bosses, a lot of the time I don't see developers put a save point near it. Like right near it is what I mean. A lot of the time the save point isn't even directly associated with the environmental boss. It's just like somewhere else, and you encounter the boss, it's like a gank almost, but you can decide to not fight it if you don't want to, because either you can run around it or it's not in a path that is blocking you from progress, so you don't really care, right? So a lot of people would probably call these like optional bosses, right? So again, a lot of developers, like especially Team Cherry, tend to not put like a checkpoint right next to these kind of bosses because, for the immersion, it doesn't warrant putting a checkpoint right next to them. So how do we feel about this? Do we feel like that matters? Like okay, maybe I should give it a little bit more context. So if a runback to such a boss is not really taken into a consideration, like, they don't put a save point anywhere near it. Like, let's say the nearest save point is like in some other area entirely, or the nearest save point requires you to navigate through like tight passages of enemies, or the nearest save point is far, but it's like empty space. Like basically, how do we feel about the idea of an environmental type of boss not necessarily having like a close run back if you were to die to them? Like, does it matter?
Me, I usually don't necessarily. This is just me personally. I usually don't mind it too much unless if I find myself, dealing with that boss like more than like let's just say 3 or 4 times, and then it's like, okay, buddy, I kind of wish I could just get to that point again so I can like instantaneously run back that boss. But me personally, usually I try and keep myself busy, find my own fun, like kill some enemies, get some money, work on like my movements or like how I attack enemies, all that kind of stuff. I try and make purpose me trying to go back to that to that boss. But at the end of the day, I do think it's better to have a save point right before any kind of boss for those players who just want to instantly go back to fight that boss again.
Do you feel like it compromises any of the immersion to put the save point right next to such an environmental boss?
No, I don't. I can argue that it introduces more challenge. I can argue maybe it introduces more challenge, but I don't think it breaks the immersion at all.
Interesting, because there is a quote from Team Cherry. Pulling it up right now. Because there was a Reddit thread, and actually I could pull this up for those of you that are watching the episode on video. And again, thank you very much to those of you that are watching
on
the video.
Like so you can see,
yeah, I can go ahead and show you guys because it is.
Also, if you want, I could try and record myself like playing Mario 64 or any of these games to try and show examples. If I actually start talking about that, I can try if you want to spruce up the video even more with that.
Oh yeah, sure. If you'd like, yeah. If it's not too much trouble. Of course, we didn't have it prepared in advance for this episode, but since we do have Discord screen share, I think it shouldn't be too much of a problem. So we're looking right now at a Team Cherry thread, and I can zoom it in a little bit because it's going to be small in the podcast video. But this is a thread from 7 years ago. Oh my goodness. Wait, what? Oh, 2018. 2018. I was like 2021. No, but no. 2018. Wow, 2018 was 7 years ago.
Dang, that was a long time ago. Wow.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the comment that's above this was deleted. But basically, the person was asking like how they feel about runbacks, and it's like a good question, right? Because Team Cherry are pretty famous for, let's just say, not putting save points right next to a boss. And leave it at that for now.
Even the major ones, like too. Like I was just thinking about, what is it called? Last Judge, I think that's the boss's name. That's a major boss, and there was actually no save point right next to it.
Yeah. And they say, we never try to be cruel about this, but maybe it's better to consider the boss and the path before it as a single challenge? ? There is also another element of allowing time to reflect on the loss, rather than just constantly bashing against a boss and relying partly on luck to succeed. But it's also really important to note, we don't have full control over the placement of things in Hallow Nest, The world informs us where objects are placed and how things are built and laid out. It abides by its own logic, and we have to take care not to bash it into place just to smooth it out for players. If we do that too much, then Hellenist as a kingdom starts to feel artificial. I could not hold it in. I can feel
that
myself.
Sounds like a mixture of, I would say, let me read this over, because I found a mixture of challenge, but an emphasis on immersion. But let me see this over.
Guys, it's not like they made Hollow Nest, right, guys?
It sounds like they made the world first, like it was a narrative first, and then they applied gameplay around the narrative. That's what I'm getting at.
Well, this is kind of a fundamental thing I've personally like tried to keep whenever I like see the game or evaluate a game, or I'm thinking about ideas for a game. It's that you should never trade off good features for immersion. Like you should never sacrifice just having good gameplay features, good quality of life features at the altar of immersion. I feel like that's like just a fallacy. Like you can
sorry, that's the thing that's like the whole immersion thing. Like, do not get me wrong, I really liked Hollow Knight, the original, and Silksong. Like, I actually really liked those games, and I'm still currently playing Silksong. But I think it's very strange to not incorporate, these features due to immersion and, changing the world that they created, which they can easily change parts of the world so that that makes a bit more sense. And I think just placing a bench right there, I don't think will break the immersion, if that makes sense. Like, if they were going at it a purely kind of challenge thing, even if I myself, most of the time, it's not hard to go running back to the boss because I'm used to either the platforming section or move past the enemies, etc. I can understand maybe a challenge argument, like, okay, like for example, Biowater, that's a whole bunch of like, parkouring, platforming to get to that boss in Biowater, and then you go through a gauntlet, and then you go to find the boss. Like that, I can see, like, yeah, that can like be challenged to certain players. But this, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, and that's where I was getting at, right? Like, yeah. I get the whole idea of, maybe a save point right next to an environmental boss might, theoretically, like if I'm playing devil's advocate, right? Maybe it might not make sense because that particular boss is not like an actual roadblock, but it's just like a part of the world, right? Like the environmental concept I was mentioning. But even then, is it really getting that much in the way of the smoothness of the world to have a shortcut that leads back to a previous save point that connects with where the boss is? Like, just realistically thinking about it. Even Dark Souls does this. And Dark Souls 3, for all the flaws that it has with save points near a boss, even that game has several shortcuts that usually provide a pathway for the player to have a straight shot to where the boss is. Now, of course, that game, unfortunately, because of having the straight shot to the boss, results in having a lot of empty space between the save point and the boss. And it just ends up being like a, 45 or 40 second or 1 minute in some cases sprint to where your save point was to where the boss is. And I don't know. Doesn't work out too well, especially when, okay, sure, if the boss is like completely baby easy, first try every time, then it's not going to matter, right? They're not going to be redoing the run back that many times anyway, right? But for a Dark Souls 3 boss where it's literally built on trial and error, it's built on knowledge checks for the first couple of attempts, it's built on trying to figure out how to beat the boss, and if you make a mistake, then you're going to take a lot of damage. Then in those cases where the player is going to need reattempts on the boss, having them do a 1 minute sprint every single time they need to challenge the boss just becomes silly. And yes, they can decide, oh, I'm going to defer the challenge to later. I can always, return to this, or, I need to have time to reflect on my strategy. I I can't. I need to have time
It's all good. Don't worry. You let it out. To let out the giggles. Let it out.
Yeah, I mean, okay, guys, I'm not like trying to make up a person that has these takes. I've seen these takes countless times on Reddit and elsewhere. People saying that gives you time to reflect on the boss. I think actually the Hollow Knight developers themselves have said this, and it might have been somewhere else in another thread, but regardless, time to reflect on the boss and like how to refine your strategy can always be taken by the player on their own. It doesn't need to be like, oh, fill the time with force you to think about your strategies while you do like a dull, bland 1 minute sprint. Like, what is the point of that? Like, if anything, if you want them to like think about things in a meaningful way, maybe you can also have them actually do meaningful gameplay during the run back. Like perhaps there's, you know, a proper like thing that integrates the mechanics that they learned along the way, like a, you know, platforming challenge or like an actual enemy engagement that requires them to do it rather than, you know, oh, skip past this, learning how to skip past everything as fast as possible.
Yeah, that's why actually I usually, if I need to do a run back, that's usually why I opt to like basically kill everything on site, because it's like at least I can maybe make some more money. Maybe I can like test out certain things that like, you know, hey, you know, maybe short hop slash, maybe just like pogo here, or like, oh, you know, parry this, you know, sort of thing. Like I try and make use of that time to run back, because I don't want to purely just do, you know, running back to it, because then I find that a little bit boring, dull. But after so many times, it's like, okay, buddy, I just want to get to the boss.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like I try and find things I can do during the run back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, might I add, like, is respawning after dying artificial? Like,
no,
like
but that's
a game.
That's like a whole nother. Well, when you put it that way, you know, if we're talking real life versus game, then if you die in real life, you're not going to get respawn.
Exactly. Like, okay, dude, just the fact that you respawn like at a save point, like, like, can we go ahead and like say that, all right, the player has to suspend some kind of disbelief after a certain point? Like, I don't think any player is going to have any problem. And this is what like this is just what sets me off, is I've never seen anyone complain when there's save points right next to the boss, but for some reason people will defend to death having like a 1 minute run back to a boss that's like literally empty space, or, you know, skipping past enemies. And it's like, oh, but you can get hit by those enemies on the way. Yeah, you can. But would you let yourself have less health going into the boss, or would you run back to the save point and try to get your health in check? Or even when you enter the boss arena, are you fighting the boss with less health if you have an opportunity to recover your health? Like, we have to all admit, we want to be able to fight the boss at the end of the day. If that's what we're focused on,
Yes, that's correct.
we want to be able to fight the boss.
That's our end goal.
Yeah. We want to be able to tackle the challenge, the roadblock that's before us. Like, that's the whole point of that is what a roadblock is. You're trying to overcome it, right? Like, theoretically, and this is not my original idea. This is something I stole from the Metroidvanias subreddit recently. But theoretically, if you're, you know, studying for a test and you got something wrong on the practice test you're doing, would you then be like, oh, I'm gonna run a lap around my block every time I get a question wrong so that I can think about what I did wrong on the question, right? After a while, you're not really thinking about whether you get a question wrong. You're thinking about the agonizing, you know, feelings you're feeling when you're running a lap. Like, oh, I'm gonna be so tired if I get another question wrong. I don't want to have to run another lap again, right? You're not really thinking about getting the question wrong anymore, right?
I could be the outlier, but you know, sometimes when I you know, struggling with something, trying to soak an idea and try and think about it, I am literally that person that will go out and walk for like 30 minutes, but in the game that's kind of extreme.
Well, okay, that's what I'm saying though. Like, when you do that, you're not like, you're doing it to like give yourself a relief, but you're not doing it as like the punishment to yourself, like every time you did something bad, right? Like, it, and in general, if you did that every time as a punishment when you did something bad, eventually you're just gonna like, you're gonna like, what's the word? it's like a classical psychology concept. Like you're gonna be focused on that instead of like the actual task that you were originally doing, basically. Like if you do it every time.
This is such a good segue. Not necessarily run back, but it's basically, I don't even know if it's a backtrack. It's basically a laundry list of tedious things because you need to run back to switch your monkey, your column in a certain simian game released 25 years ago.
Oh yeah, okay. Hold that thought.
Hold that thought. But
yeah.
But anyways, but yeah, just like I get it. If like let's just say if that stretch to get to the boss is like filled with hard to avoid enemies, you're doing some tight-knit platforming, but most of the time in like let's just say Silksong, it's really not too much like that. Maybe it's because I'm just used to that kind of thing. I'm better at it. I'll admit that, but it comes to a point where it's like you're redoing this same challenge over and over, which you've already completed and thought it was easy. You've done this, you're not even getting hit, and then when it comes to that point, you're kind of, wasting time, if that makes sense. And I kind of wish I could just respawn right next to the boss. You see where I'm going at with this? Like, if the challenge was actually, difficult to get to the boss, and they wanted that difficult challenge to be part of it, then that's fine. I would respect it. But if the challenge is not that difficult, then it's just kind of a time waster.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It literally never is difficult. I have never encountered a boss backtrack that has actually been difficult. Like if you just look at like the execution of like what's required, like maybe involves like mastery of mechanics or whatever. Like I've never encountered a backtrack to a boss that's actually like that. I mean, and just imagine, right? If a developer puts the effort into making such a challenge, where could that have effort been better spent? I wonder. Roadblock. Boss? Is that what could have better spent? Ah, yes. A boss. The roadblock itself. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like part of it is definitely like, it's hard to make a good boss. Let's be real. Like, it's a lot of effort. And I know
it's also very, very subject to, opinion of what people find to be a good boss or not. Like,
yeah. Exactly.
I remember after the Sonic Adventure 2 race, I was defending kid, that ghost, the ghost boss. I don't remember what it's called. I was trying to defend that boss so much.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, this is sick. There's like clear defined different phases of like his attacks, and it's like once you get him out, you can actually, if you're really, really good, you can like basically zap away his health until it's like only one more hit. Like I actually did it. Like I got his health to red right in one go. I was like, no, this is sick. This is like actually sick, but everyone else was hating the boss.
Yeah, I like. Oh yeah, and also Retrorage, do you have anything on this? Like,
yeah, please add something, Retrorage.
Yeah. You guys are all wrong. I in fact like reflecting over the boss fight as I die, and I walk back to the boss fight for a minute. When I was sitting in that elevator in Dark Souls 3, I was thinking, oh yes, I love this time that they've provided me so I can go into my inventory and change my build to something that's better, In my double elevator shenanigans, because I didn't find the shortcut, I sat there and in the elevator that I had to push back down every time. Because, Dark Souls is just like that, It's part of the game. It's part of the immersion that I have to push the elevator back down so that it's there for me when I respawn, That it was just so peak, guys. It was so peak. If you guys can tell, I'm obviously joking. Why would you do it? It makes no sense. Okay. If your focus, Dark Souls is all about the boss fights. No, it's actually not. It's about pain and suffering. The whole game is about pain and suffering. It's about how much suffering can I give to the players before they actually get angry. And obviously From Software, the masters, the master developers themselves has found that point, that exact line where players will love the masochism that they are being put through and not hate on them. You know, they just, I don't know how to explain it. They found that line that, you know, I just can't see. I can't see that line because I don't like any of it. I don't like any of it. So I just, these runbacks or whatever. Oh, immersion. Okay. What if it, you know, when you die in my game, I'm just going to delete your entire game from your computer because, you know, one life, right? That's true immersion. You want immersion? You really only have one life. And if you want to play it again, you got to buy another copy because your copy died. You know what I'm saying?
Isn't there a mode like that in Hollow Knight and Silksong? Like if you die, your file gets deleted. I think.
Yeah, true hard mode or whatever.
Steel
And
Soul.
people want to do it, and I'm like, okay, you know, I guess. So I just, dude, I don't know, dude. You know, okay.
I honestly think it's a mix of both. Like I kind of think, like, don't get me wrong, I kind of think you need to have a degree of like I'm half joking. Like I don't necessarily mean, you know, it being like fetishy, but rather you have to enjoy some kind of level of punishment and like that kind of aspect of it to like any sort of game that has anything remotely Souls-like in it. Like by remote, I'm talking about like something that's so light as like, you know, Hollow Knight with corpse running, or a full-on Souls game like, you know, Dark Souls. But if you don't like that, you're definitely not going to have a good time.
Okay, and you know, let's be clear, like difficulty is subjective. Like after all, that is why we're having the whole darn conversation right now. Like if it weren't subjective, then there'd be nothing to say. It's already solved, right? But it's clearly not solved. It's clearly not objective. Because otherwise, why are these developers all have their own like idea of how to engage the player in some kind of way, whether it's meaningful, whether it's not? I could say it's meaningful, another person could say it's not meaningful. I could say it's not meaningful, another person could say, oh, it is difficult, trust me. Having to redo it every time is so difficult, man. And I could say no, it's not difficult because there's not any execution to it. It's just learning the knowledge checks, and then afterwards you have to, after you learn the knowledge checks, after you've seen everything about the boss, it's just a matter of having enough patience and having enough sanity.
You gotta grind that song. Yeah. You gotta grind that song. Know where the notes are. Play it like a rhythm game.
Oh my goodness, dude! The worst part about a lot of these backtracks, again, is that they're not like, even if people called them hard, they're not even testing anything that you're supposed to master about the game. Like let's be honest with ourselves. What is the runback actually testing about? It's testing my patience. It's testing my sanity. Right? And I'm always driven to insanity when I do a one, like, dude, the Osiris runback, what a cool boss, by the way, like design wise, ruined entirely by the runback. Oh my goodness, man. In Dark Souls 3, the fastest runback requires you to take the elevator, or take the elevator down and then leave it early so that you can take the faster path there. And the faster path there still has like 3 enemies that are guarding their posts quite well. And mind you, those enemies can just be ran past as well, right? But that's what I'm saying. Like, is running past them the challenge? No. You press dodge roll once, you're good to go. And then you just sprint some more, and boom, you're back at the boss finally. How long does that take? About a minute. About a minute of things that don't even really test your skills in the game. It's just testing your patience. It's just testing your sanity. And people were saying, oh, patience, sanity, that is a skill. Yeah, to some degree. I mean, it is. But if I'm playing a video game...
Monkey Ball did teach me well. Monkey Ball did teach me well with that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's a life skill too. Like, let's be real. You need patience in real life, right? And in general, if you don't have patience, then a lot of things are going to annoy you more quickly. But that's not the point I'm making, right? If I'm playing a video game, I'm trying to have fun, and I'm trying to enjoy the limited time I have as a working adult to spend, like, you know, winding down, or to spend enjoying myself in a video game. And if the video game is placing these, like, you know, meaningless roadblocks that not only are not fun in themselves, but also don't reinforce the fun things about the game that the game is trying to, like, teach you to learn about it in order to get better at it, then to me, it generally feels like a waste. And even, I feel this way even about games I like, okay? There's plenty of metroidvanias I played that I actually like a lot, and have plenty of awful moments where it's like, why is it like this? Like, one of the
Clock Tower is a good example of like most Castlevania games.
yeah, Clock Tower and every Castlevania game is just awful. It's just terrible, and it's not even because of any runback or whatever. It's just like super annoying, right? And the skills that are tested in Clock Tower is mostly your patience and sanity. Like, you're not really like, okay, maybe you look at your inventory and are like, do I have anything that resists stone? Okay, I do. Nice. But a lot of Clock Tower games don't even have the Medusa heads that stone you necessarily. Sometimes they do something.
I just like hack and slash my way, and just that's how I do it. It's slower, but that's what I do, because if I'm going to be doing some kind of run back or backtrack, I typically like to like maybe I could at least grind a little bit, even just like a tiny bit, or like maybe I could like test out some things during while I'm like on my journey back. That's just me. Not everyone's going to be like that, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, part of it too is that I almost never complain when a run back is actually like good as in like properly difficult in the way that the game has trained you to become better at. Well, to be honest, I've never found a game that even has such a run back, but that's a separate thing of its own. But
make one, Retrorage. Make one.
Well,
there's a game dev in the process, so make one.
Yes. Well, the other thing is too, I think a lot of people like misconstrue it and think I'm complaining about the time it takes. Honestly, the run back could be 30 seconds, and if it's just empty space, I'll still complain. Because 30 seconds of empty space could easily just be compressed into like 1 second with the save point right next to the boss, right? Just have a shortcut at that point. And just in general, if you know that the player is going to need a lot of attempts, because, you know, Dark Souls 3 does this a lot. There's like an involved boss that requires you to learn the patterns and stuff. And they're like, yeah, you're going to need a lot of attempts on this. That's fine. Honestly, that's fine. Again, I have no issue with that by itself. But why would you also put a far save point that is also the closest save point to the boss and say like, oh, this is part of the path to the boss, a single challenge, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not a challenge. It's just waste of time. It's just annoying. It's just meant to like frustrate you before you even gotten back to the boss. Like, I call it pre-tilt, because it's just like, like you're already, you're not even like, what you're tilted at is not thinking about how you're going to do the next attempt. You're tilted at the fact that you have to like spend all that time getting back into the boss. And as Waka said earlier, like, if anything, that's what breaks the immersion. Because you're so into the boss fight, you know, you're so focused, so in the zone, and then you die, and then you have to walk back again. And it's like that like breaks the flow. Now, I've heard this said before on Reddit, where the runbacks are actually like to cool you off to make sure that you're not in the zone and make sure that you take longer to clear the boss. And that
really, I've never heard that take. I heard the take where it's like, I don't know, Lacquer Bro say calm before the storm, where it kind of like is like you're out of it just a little bit, and then when you run back, you have, oh my, I'm going to say this, give you time to reflect. Dang it. But no, hear me out. Hear me out. Give you time to maybe give you just a little bit of a revert. I've heard that kind of argument, but never the whole it's purposely done to throw you off your groove.
Yeah. Dude, literally like to cool you off, because like, you know, if you're too in the zone, then you'll clear it too quickly. And that's like the devs' valuable time spent on a good boss, right? They don't want you to clear it so fast. Like they, you know, those old games that are like, we have 8 hours of gameplay, and then the 8 hours of gameplay is like redoing like the whole level in order to get back to the boss or whatever, and there's no continues or lives or anything like that. Like, you know,
hey, you know, they want you to buy the game, not beat it during the rental period during the 90s.
Yeah, dude, exactly, dude. Oh, that brings me to my point about a game I completed recently, Mega Man Zero. Oh my goodness, that game is messed up with the way it's like. Okay, specifically 02 and 04. No. Is this 02? Anyway, 04 was the most recent one I played.
02 was the one you were complaining about a lot, and then 4 you... It sounded like...
02 and 4,
yeah. And it sounded like it was like... It went back to how 02 handled it, so I was like, oh no. It does not sound like the Cruise G Mega Man.
Yeah. Okay, so the thing with 02 and 04... It's just the classic old school trolling. That's not really the topic of this podcast, so I'm not going to get too much into it. But that game has a continued live system, right? If you just play the game in like the quote unquote original vanilla way. I'm not going to say intended way, because it's clear that, with the modern quality of life features that they updated it with, intentions have changed over time. But again, original release of the game didn't have any of that with the save assist. So you had a number of lives. If you lost all your lives, you have to respawn from the last from the last time you saved, and that's like your continue. The thing is, the levels in 02. Okay, again, I don't want to get too much into it, but they basically they expect you to die because there's just no possible way to know it on your first try. You might get lucky on your first try, and the Holland devs mentioned they don't like when people get lucky on succeeding on a boss. Well, I guess we can consider the 02 levels a boss because, yeah, there's just no possible way to know some of these blind jumps. And it's funny because even in I think it is 02 again, there's some jumps in like there's like a stage where there's like flying ships and you have to like platform on them. And there's apparently some cycles on that stage that are literally impossible to make the jump. So you have to wait. And because it's off screen, the game is so zoomed in. Because it's off screen, there's no way to know what cycle you're on unless you just have that much intimate familiarity with the level, which you wouldn't have on your first playthrough. So any first successful attempt you get on your first playthrough would just be lucky, straight up, right? And to me, that is yikes, right? That is just troll level design, and they just want to take away your lives so that they can pad out the playtime of the game. And then we have to talk about the bosses. My goodness, the bosses. Okay, not only are just like so many like off-screen cheap shots that they do, knowledge checks and yada yada, but also they make sure that any access to lives is strictly limited within that level. Because the only way to get lives in Mega Man Zero, as far as I could tell at least, is from finding the secret spots that they're located in, right? And there's a finite quantity of those. It's not like, oh, you get better at the game, you get a higher score, therefore you have like more of a chance to last longer in your playthrough. No, there's nothing directly associated with getting better with getting those extra lives. Those extra lives are all tied to finding the secret area, which is a straight up knowledge check, strategy guide type thing. So when you look at it that way, that game actually does have runbacks. It's just that the runbacks are not done every time you die to the boss. Because again, when you still have lives, you just respawn. You respawn within the level still, which is funny because, well, sometimes you get a checkpoint, but it's funny still because it's actually worse than just a traditional continue life system. A lot of traditional continue life systems put you right back where you die, or put you right back like from a checkpoint before like you run out of lives. And then if you run out of lives, then you start the level again, but not the whole game again, or not from like the last time you saved again. Like it's pretty incredible like how brutal Mega Man Zero is with that originally. And again, this is a game with bosses that are like honestly the early framework for like a Souls like kind of boss, where it's trial and error, like pure, grinded out, brute force, figuring out the patterns and stuff, the dodges. And some of the dodges are not really visually clear, like they're not sight readable. You just gotta like experiment and stuff. Again, trial and error, going back to that. And that type of gameplay is grating. Like eventually that's gonna wear down any player, even a player with lots of patience. A player that makes it through that just has to really like Mega Man, or really like enjoy the process of trial and error. But I feel like genuinely, like without the save assist, you have to recognize that the runbacks in that game are equivalent, if not worse, than something you might see in Dark Souls. And it goes back to the point I'm making, where do you want to make the runback itself as like a boss fight? Well, in order to do that, it has to actually be like hard, and actually has to test the skills that the player might acquire along the way in order to be a smooth integration of like, combining it with the actual roadblock that is the boss. And then the boss itself, well, it doesn't have to be formed in any way that I'm saying, because obviously these are all my opinions. But the boss itself theoretically would have to be as measurable of a challenge. Otherwise, people might say, well, why couldn't they just put this much effort into the boss? Because we see it time and time again in games like Hollow Knight and Silksong, where they're like, yeah, the path to the boss is part of the boss, and then the boss itself is like some baby easy, I run away, but you're powerful enough to kill me in like 1 or 2 tries, or I just spawn enemies and bash my head into the wall, and like some basic moveset that just makes you wonder, like, where was the devs' focus in the roadblocks, putting the roadblocks in the game? Was the focus on frustrating the player, or was the focus on providing a challenge that the player can overcome by means of getting better at the game? I mean, we see all these people in several Silksong discussion spaces say, "Get good, get good." What am I getting good at? What am I getting good at? Am I getting good at?
You're getting good at accepting that Silksong is a great game.
Got him. I mean, you might be right though. Like, I'm looking at some more threads that I saved so many threads for this episode. I'm looking at some more things people have said. Like, having a retry option doesn't make sense for Silksong because you need to feel the weight and the tension of dying. Like,
guys,
what in the world?
Your game deletes itself, and you have to buy a new game, right? The pain and tension of dying. You lose your game copy when you die. That's some real pain and tension, guys.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
For real, dude. There's like people are like, oh, if there's no penalty for dying, there's no tension, right? If there's nothing that forces you to like really feel the effects of having messed up or made a mistake. My goodness, the mistake I've made is even playing the game when I see that kind of thing. If I'm still playing the game after seeing that, that is the mistake I made. I'm sorry. I should have dropped the game by that point.
People out here should say Ghosts and Goblins is the true game of the year, but I don't see anybody saying that. You know what I'm saying? That game, you truly feel the weight of getting knowledge checked at like the very end. That is the true weight on your shoulders. You know? But no, I don't see anybody. Oh, Ghosts and Goblins is such a good game. Well, where's my 5 million sales of Ghosts and Goblins remastered, guys? You know, with all these Silksong enjoyers saying about all this backtracking nonsense, I don't see them going out and purchasing Ghosts and Goblins remastered. You know what I'm saying? Where are all my supporters of Ghosts and Goblins, right? Nah, none of them have played that cry. You know why? They wouldn't even play it.
Yeah.
So they're all capping, dude. I tell you, everyone who writes that comment, if they haven't played Ghosts and Goblins, you're all capping. Because that is a game that's truly exactly what you're looking for. Oh, you gotta feel the weight and the tension of every single one of your lives. You know, like, yeah, I don't know, man.
No, yeah. I mean, hey, yeah, it actually raises like a really insightful point about that. Is that people are definitely playing the game for like the Hollow Knight world, like the Hollow Knight aesthetic, and because they love that part of the game so much, they're willing to overlook anything that the game has with regards to its flaws or with, potential things that are questionable about it. And this is proven further, again, when I never see anyone complain when the save points are next to a boss. I literally never have seen anyone complain about it. I've never seen anyone say, oh, this is immersion breaking, or oh, this feels artificial. Why do I have a save point near the boss? I should have it farther away. I've never seen anyone complain about that. And for that matter, I've not played this game, but this has been pretty pertinent to the things we talk about in voice calls. Elden Ring. The Dark Souls devs themselves, the developers of the acclaimed Dark Souls series, okay? In Elden Ring, they allowed these statues where you can respawn right before the boss when you mess up on it. And guess what that does? The devs have to scramble to make the boss a real challenge. Wow. Isn't that crazy? I'm not saying that the bosses are like, because I don't know about Elden Ring bosses. I'm not saying that like because of that Elden Ring bosses are harder, but I am saying that that basically pokes a hole in the fundamental game design. Like, you do have to look for a better way to provide the roadblock to player if you're just going to put them right before the boss. But by putting them right before the boss, you're eliminating all the fluff. You're eliminating all the things that distract from the boss being like the central highlight or focus or spectacle, right? That it's supposed to be, especially for a major boss. I mean, after all, bosses are like a very widespread narrative element for a lot of the games that they have, or that have.
It's supposed to be a high point in the game.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the things that are memorable about modern games are the bosses. I mean, I'm not saying video games need to be a boss rush. Like, don't get the wrong idea. I know a lot of people on Souls-likes spaces have said like, oh, then it's just glorified boss rush. Well, that's a problem with the level design, if anything, rather than the boss itself. Like, do we just want to put uninteresting, bland levels every time there's space between a boss? That's its own flaw, and that's not something that we need to talk about necessarily today. But yeah.
I think, but like, so, okay. backtracking, right? We're talking about having to redo things.
Yeah.
Right? And background, I'm a platformer player. I play like platformer games. Not speedrunning, but I do play. I am a platformer genre player, right? And I bring Mario because like Nintendo, I grew up on Nintendo. But Mario, think about Mario, platformer game, right? Think about Mario bosses. The Koopa kids. You guys remember those boss fights? Boss fights with quotes, right? Where you like they do like one small gimmick and then you jump on their head and they become a turtle.
Yep.
Right? Very predictable, very not knowledge checky. You get like maybe knowledge checked once, but if you have a mushroom, you can tank a hit, right? So you have a boss fight like that coupled with like their Koopa Tower, right? So what's the main focus in this level? Is it the level or the boss, right? And obviously it's the level, right? The level is the main focus, so the boss is like kind of whatever, right? It shouldn't be killing you that much, right? So that's my question for these other games, right? What is your focus? Is your focus like the boss fight, or your focus the thing that you have to do to get to the boss fight? Because in a platformers usually have it so that the focus mainly is one of two things: the boss fight, which has a gimmick that uses some platforming that you just got or you need, like you've learned or you've practiced throughout the entire game, right? Or a combination of that. Or two, the platforming it takes to get there, right? And the boss fight is usually not knowledge checky and is just pretty simple, right? Because the main challenge is getting to the boss fight because it's a platforming game, right? The main challenge is getting there. So having like a boss fight that's kind of whatever, like in Mario isn't praised for its boss fights. No one's like, oh yeah. I mean, they like the characters. They're like, oh yeah, Larry's cool, right? But they're not like, oh yeah, that Larry boss fight, guys, that was so sick. I was really feeling that tension. I was like scared that I was gonna. No, nobody's saying that. And even if you get to like the last level of Mario games where you fight Bowser, guess what? Guess what it usually is? It's a platforming challenge. Even in the first Mario game, the final Bowser fight is a platforming challenge where you have to like jump
over the flame,
hammers, the hammers he throws or he jumps RNG. That's a platforming challenge. It's not like I have to like go do, instant dash. I gotta jump over it, and then it's like diagonal dive kicks coming around at me, and then they throw triple needles. It's all very predictable, non-high stakes platforming challenges, or like a non-high stakes boss, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like I take a look at these other games that have these backtracks, right? And I'm like, okay, what is the point of this, right? What kind of game are you trying to be? You know what that tells me? You're just being a frustrating, like wasting my time game.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, great course correction there again. I think it is like and there's other examples too in other platformer games. Like one of my favorite platformers ever is Umihara Kawase, right? And that game unfortunately didn't have good like design direction in the first game in terms of like how they decided to spawn enemies. Like enemies spawn like a little bit randomly. You can control them to some degree, but it gets in the way of the main focus of the game, which is the grapple swinging, right? And the grapple swinging physics are like so well implemented and so well done. And then you have to deal with like the enemies and all of that, right? And they're like, oh, how do we make this game like supposedly hard? The game is already like hard enough in a meaningful way with like mastering the grapple mechanics. But then they're like, instead of like answering the question how to make it hard, they answered the question how to make it frustrating by putting the enemies, right? And even the bosses in that game, like if you want to even call them bosses, they're really just glorified cutscenes.
Tadpole.
Yeah, Tadpole and Crab and Squids as well.
I have never battled Crab, sadly. Like for some reason, I didn't go that path.
yeah. But like it's a platform-based focused game, right? So having the enemies be an annoyance, you really feel the annoyance. If that makes sense. And having the bosses be cutscenes, basically where you're just like waiting 4 minutes or whatever, you really feel those 4 minutes because apart from those moments, like the most engaging part of the gameplay is exhilarating, right? It's thrilling. Like you're figuring out how to swing across, like maybe you got to do a sequence of swings in a row. And, perhaps dodging enemies does provide a challenge of its own, but you can feel it get in the way of like the central attraction of the game. And I think that's what Retrorage was getting at. Like when your focus is like the platforming, or when your focus is like the action combat, and then you have something that's like almost entirely unrelated get in the way, like a useless 30-second empty sprint run back, right? Like that does get felt like in terms of like it being in the way, since it's not the same like exhilarating gameplay that you felt from the rest of the game. And unfortunately, I do feel like a lot of devs just incorporate it as a means of like free padding. It's like, hey, this is a free way to like increase the runtime of our game, or this is a free way to deceive the player into thinking it's a difficult game. Yo, see that actually cracked. We cracked the code.
Okay, that's exactly what it is. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is why I have such a problem with From Software, like, and its influence on the industry. I feel like people like. Okay, you know what? I'm not even gonna blame the devs. I'm gonna blame the players, guys. I'm gonna blame the players and their desire to punish themselves for playing video games. Like the genuinely okay. You know, little tangential, but the popularity of going up games, or these games where you have to like, you know, just retry the entire like game, like basically Ghosts and Goblins, but like platforming, right?
Yeah.
Like the popularity of these games, like Peak, for example. You guys know what Peak is?
Yeah.
The co-op where they're
Peak
climbing
is.
the mountains, and then they like die and they start. Dude, these are like masochist games. Like I genuinely like masochism. Like I'm like, how are these games popular? But they just get so popular. Benny Fodder's going up. The what's his name? The guy who rolls the stone up. That game got a lot of traction.
Yeah.
Sisyphus, the Unreal Engine asset where the guy just jumps in the air with floating Unreal assets rotated, you know, floating in the air. It's like a platform. Like I genuinely think that the market is driving these decisions to make like games that just have these things that burn the player's time for the ego of defeating something difficult, right? Like the idea that, oh, I've done something like frustrating, which means that I'm a gamer. I've done something difficult, and that makes me feel good. The identity is tied to doing the game. I don't know.
No, yeah.
I mean, it depends on if you enjoyed it or not, because like me personally, that like you know, I find enjoyment on most, you know, most things, like maybe to the fault, but dang, there's so much. Like I probably jump. Oh, I'll answer that later. Just got a DM. But anyways, but yeah, like it depends on like ultimately, you know, what you find as difficult, what you find as frustrating, what you find as easy, and what you find as not easy. Like, yeah, like I just say these runbacks. Like, I'm going to be honest. Like, I've seen so many, you know, random streamers playing these games, and they die to bosses, and it looks like they're not even really trying to engage that much with the bosses. Like, what the heck are you doing? And then they need to replay that section again. That tells me maybe most players are just simply not that good. Variety of games.
Oh well, yeah.
You know what
I mean, based on gameplay I've seen, that is definitely true to some extent. Now, of course, I mean, I don't think knocking people's skills is like an argument that holds up, because at the end of the day, like these games aren't like super hard to begin with, but and there's always outs. Like no matter like how supposedly bad you are at video games, which again, anytime I see people say that, like kind of roll my eyes, because if you just pay attention to what's in the game, you have the outs available in a lot of these games, especially
a lot of times
games.
they tell you a lot of times they tell you how you do it if you just pay attention to your kit, the attack patterns. Like even ones that are quote unquote knowledge checky, there is a solution. It might just not necessarily be, you know, apparent right away. Like they don't really give you time to figure it out before it's too late, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's
There's still a solution.
There's nothing that's insurmountable, right? Like it's not like, oh, the execution is impossible or anything. Like it's literally just, do you know what to do? Have you tried other things? And that's why a lot of these games tend to favor trial and error that are also painted as difficult, because that's kind of the easiest way to implement so-called difficulty, right? And someone I've been pulling up threads in the meantime from RSS Metroidvania that I saved, and someone that is a boss backtrack defender said, you have to draw the line where to punish the player for dying. Some games just respawn you where you are, no real penalty. By the way, that is faulty, but anyway, it's there to make you replay the entire stage. It all comes down to what the goal is and how much the developer wants to penalize the player for failure. Some folks say, I beat the zone once, I shouldn't have to retread it. An argument I find slightly flawed in Metroidvania, whose core gameplay loop is mastering retreading the map, but whatever. But why stop there? If I beat phase 1 of the boss, why make me redo it? Why drop rosaries at all? If I should I could earn those, why make me redo it? They have to put that line somewhere. For Silksong, they put in a few seconds of runbacks. I finished 100%. There was one that took more than a few seconds, and it was because the entire zone is designed to be a marathon of survival. It gives the player a chance to breathe and refocus. It lets them practice a tiny bit of platform and then retry the boss. It also makes it a bit easier for the player to decide to go elsewhere if the boss is too hard right now. Not saying it's a perfect decision, but I think it's easy to argue against any friction penalty until there's nothing left, and that emo is a worse overall experience. Someone replied, isn't the punishment for dying need to restart the fight over? And it goes on and on. I mean, this discussion is never going to be solved, which is why it's discourse, right?
I mean, it's proof. Like, you know how I feel about, runbacks and backtracks and, knowledge checks, which I do not think that's artificial difficulty. What I think is artificial difficulty is actually having something very arbitrary, like a number, like something that's like an RPG mechanic that's like a number, or like, oh, we're bumping up the stats and you're just simply not strong enough to it. You gotta go grind.
Yeah, DPS check.
More like art. Yeah, exactly. That I find is like, that is artificial, but something that's like knowledge check, and it just, you need to figure out how to dodge it and figure out how to solve that problem, and maybe it requires, I don't know, dashing a certain way, jumping over it, or doing that kind of stuff. I see that as not necessarily artificial difficulty, because it does still test the player on some kind of skill or knowledge. That's just me. But something that's like very arbitrary and that's like just a number, just like a numbers game, that's artificial in my opinion.
Yeah, and to be fair, again, like the artificial diction, it all goes to show like that it is indeed an opinionated conversation. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I think people should be free to express what they feel about these things, but they should also. I feel like we're getting a little bit off topic with talking about difficulty. We're trying to talk about, for sure,
backtrack, run back. Like I'll try and steer back to the topic at hand.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's other dimensions to boss backtracks and runbacks in general, right? Like, yeah, I agree. Not the episode for difficulty discussion. However, it is interesting how people defend themselves using the difficulty argument. And yes, I personally am also guilty of it as well. But that's why I don't like bringing up like, oh, people's skill level relative to like the game as a justification or not justification of the boss backtracks, because I don't think it really matters. Like you can still discuss the value of whether they're worth putting in your game or not without bringing up the difficulty argument, which kind of goes to show, doesn't it? That it's a little questionable. Yeah, go ahead.
Me personally, I just am like, I'm always for, options. I know Rig Jace is going to strongly disagree, and if he somehow watches this, he might even mention it in the comments section because I said Rig Jace. But hey, difficulty options, different quality of life options. Like I am all for that. Hey, put that bench there, put that save point right there, right before a boss for those people who want to have it.
Yeah.
There, so that they can immediately, battle boss again. That is not harming anyone. And if you want something that's more challenging, then hey, you could just restrain yourself from using that save point. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the type of audience you want to garner. And at the end of the day, a lot of these games can succeed regardless of what type of audience they cater to, because that particular audience will buy the game no matter what. Okay, anyway, moving on. We're going to go to our last topic of today, and we are at the 1 hour 50 mark, but we should be fine. We can just keep going until we've exhausted the things to say.
Oh wait, let me just inject this because it might be too late because it's absolutely not
Go for it.
at all.
Go for it. Yes.
But okay, if we're talking about like backtracks, something that's very meaningless, very tedious, so pointless, I can't think of any other better game than Donkey Kong 64. Are you kidding me? That it could all be just fixed if you just had tag anywhere between the Kongs. Okay, you see, each Kong, they have their own unique. So I shouldn't even say unique because some of them are not even necessarily unique. Some are redundant. But anyways, they have their own different abilities as well as their own different firearms. Like some of them shoot peanuts, some of them shoot coconuts, etc. But I'll just use this as an example. Here's like a scenario I remember dealing with in that Donkey Kong game is you will explore the world, you're collecting the collectibles, and each collectible is designated to a specific Kong. They're all color coded, and each color corresponds to a particular Kong. You collect those things, and what's that? It's a different color. You need a different Kong. Then you run back, and then you switch to that Kong. You then proceed that area. Then it's a different color. Then you go back, and then you do it. You retread that area. And then what's this? You find a switch that could only be shot by a particular nut or fruit that particular Kong uses, can shoot. Then you go back and then you switch to that Kong. You shoot it, opens up the switch, you progress. What's that? There's another switch that's different. And then you go back and then you switch. You see where I'm getting this? This is absolutely nothing skillful, nothing interesting. In fact, I'd rather it be a walking sim than what I'm doing. This sounds like a laundry list of chores I'm doing.
Yeah, but hey, it's tension and friction, right? You feel the agony of having to retrace your steps every time, That's the gameplay you seek for, right? Like, that's what you bought the game? That's why you bought the game?
I bought the game because I wanted a funny, nice platformer. Like Banjo-Kazooie or Mario 64, not this.
Dude.
Where you don't need to constantly be going back just simply to switch your Kong because... this is off topic. So I'm not going to mention. I'll mention off podcast because it's not relevant. But yeah, just that those backtracks are they're awful. There's like nothing I've seen in any other game. Like that's why I roll my eyes when I hear you talk about a minute-long backtrack to fight that Dark Souls 3 boss. Minute-long backtrack for like a Silksong boss. That's like nothing. How about 4 minutes long just for a small section of the stage in Donkey Kong 64? And that's just a small stage.
Yeah, it's like you haven't seen anything. You Dark Souls player, you haven't seen anything.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. So that's why I'm like, what are you talking about?
Well, hey, they can both be bad. It's
true. They both can be bad. I could have a stronger threshold, and hey, I told you what I like to do.
Yeah.
I like to hack and slash and do what I can during the run back. Mm-hmm. Like maybe I'm getting some souls and then I pick up my souls. Like I think the last Souls game I played was like Bloodborne. Like was it like 7 years ago? Oh my, it's been 7 years since I played any sort of like Souls game. Either 7 or 6. Oh my. But anyways,
time flies.
That's exactly what I would do. Is like get little bits here and there, and then pick up my souls, and that wasn't necessarily that big of a deal because I figured I'll use this time to do that. But if you want to go straight to the boss, then it is just a pure time waster. I agree with that.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning the corpse run, because that's exactly what we'll be talking about.
It is, yeah.
Right up next year. So, what is a corpse run? Let's define it quickly. It's basically if you die, then you go back and pick up the loot that you lost when you died. Because when you die in such games, you lose some kind of loot from your inventory. Maybe it's a weapon, maybe it's money, maybe it's armor, something else. And I think one of the earliest origins of corpse runs was in MMORPGs, where if you get PK'd, the player that kills you can basically pick up your loot before you have time to like respawn and pick it back up yourself.
Can I inject something too?
Yeah, go for it.
Very briefly.
Yeah.
Also, maybe just online RPGs in general, because there was actually a sense of corpse running in the original Fantasy Star Online, and that isn't even a full-on MMO.
Mhm.
If you die, you straight up lose all your money that you have on you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you straight up lose your money and they have on you. And I think maybe in older versions, you also lost the weapon you had on you too. That was changed, I think, in later versions. I might need to look at that, but yeah, like corpse sense. Wait, that's not corpse running. That's just deletion of your loot. Never mind.
Yeah, honestly, yeah,
that's actually just deletion of your loot. Never mind.
Well, we can talk about that, but I actually think that's worse, to be honest, because then there's just no way to get it back. Like that is just brutal. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, I think they're kind of from those kind of games originally, and then for whatever reason, Dark Souls, when it first came out, decided to adapt it in its own game, or adopt into its own game, and it's become a mainstay mechanic, such that a lot of games that are not even really closely tied to Dark Souls, people immediately think them as Souls-like if they have corpse running, which is crazy because there's a game called Shovel Knight that came out in the 2010s. That game technically does have corpse running, but I don't see anyone calling that a Souls-like. So
they don't, and I can add to that. It's been like a long time since I played Shovel Knight, but probably the reason why they don't mention it too much is because it's not nearly as brutal, because you just lose some of your money, not all of it. If I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but that's probably why they don't mention it, because it's not nearly as brutal. Like, it's just some of the money that you need to run after.
That is interesting. But the way,
and also let me inject, I did fact check and look, and yes, it is indeed the original version of Fantasy Star Online. If you died, you lose your weapon that you were carrying right on you if you die, that is super brutal.
That's messed up.
Version.
Yeah,
that's not they quickly changed it for like episode 1 and 2. That doesn't happen anymore, but that's like crazy. So punishments like losing your loot, or like losing your loot, some kind of loot, or try and get it back. That's been around longer since Dark Souls. That's my main point.
Yeah, for sure. Retro, what was it?
Yeah.
No, I just said tension. I like tension. Yes.
You need to feel the penalty for dying, because otherwise there's no penalty. Well, okay. Before I get there, before I start being funny about that, so let's expand upon this a little more. So, corpse running, again, the whole central idea behind it is like you're retrieving something that you lose when you die, and in games like in games like Dark Souls 1, it's not just that you're losing money, like souls in this case, but you're also potentially losing like buffs. And I don't know enough about Dark Souls 1 to like fully expand on like the whole system around the humanity buffs, but that is important to mention alongside it, because again, it's evolved since that time. In Dark Souls 3, all you lose are the souls, and in some other Souls-likes, that's all you lose as well. Some games have tried experimenting with not only you lose your souls, but you also like acquire like some kind of accelerating penalty that increases every time you die. In Wuchong, you gain madness every time you die, and madness is supposed to be like a supposedly bad thing. Supposedly, like they kind of convey it to you in a misleading way, because it just turns out that it's actually a good thing to have madness. But that's besides the point. Point being, when you die, you lose something. You have to get it back.
But do you become mad if you die too much?
Well,
I haven't played that game.
You can get full madness, and then basically when you die with like 90% or higher madness, you have to fight your inner demon. And the inner demon is like it's like an elite enemy, basically. The elite enemy level.
God.
The thing is, the inner demon aggroes you, but can also aggro enemies. So the whole idea is like you're supposed to like use it to kill the enemies, or just have the enemies fight it while you're chilling. But
yeah, I was just about to say that it sounds like there could be potentially a positive. So in some cases, you might want to die.
Yeah.
So is that even like a fully punishment then? That's my confusion. Is like, is it not really a full punishment then?
Yeah, exactly. It's not like what's the word? It's not one way or another. It's really, I wouldn't say it's like a downside at all, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's all positive. Like just the idea that, you know, you can benefit from it or you can turn it into a benefit just makes it like not really that much of a penalty. But to be fair, the worst part about the inner demon is that you often engage it in areas where you're quote unquote not meant to. Like the enemy arrangements are deliberately designed around those enemies only, and having the inner demon there can cause like more chaos and just cause you to snowball into death. So of course, if you die to your inner demon,
gotcha.
yeah, if you die to your inner demon, then you lose all the money. So that's the whole idea. And in Wuchang, you don't lose all your money when you die. You actually lose only a percentage. And the percentage is based on how much madness you had upon death. So when you die at full madness, then you lose all your money.
So you're saying it's a shovel-like then?
Yeah. Well,
sorry, I just had to say that.
well, no, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because why are we talking about corpse running at all? Like, I think the whole idea of corpse running makes some degree of sense in the games that it was first implemented in, like MMORPGs, even Souls games. Like, I don't really find corpse running to be a primary issue in those games. But the reason I bring it up is because a lot of metroidvanias have decided, hey, we like Souls a lot. We like the Souls games a lot. Let's put corpse running in our game as well. And I don't think corpse running meshes well with the fundamental exploration that metroidvanias have. Because here's why we're mentioning this, right? Corpse runs inherently tell the player, hey, go back to where you died so that you can get your money before you die again, right? And then you lose all your money, which theoretically the money that you got is like the hard work of clearing enemies up to that point, right? It represents like your progress in killing those enemies. And the whole idea of corpse running is that if you've killed those enemies already up to the point that you died at, then you don't have to kill them again as long as you get to your corpse. But sometimes getting to your corpse by skipping the enemies is harder than just killing the enemies again, getting the money again, and getting the money you had before. So then you net gain more money when you get back to your corpse, right? But in a Metroidvania, like just fundamentally, corpse running compels the player to go straight back to where they died, which means they're locked on that path until they can clear it in one clean traversal and get their corpse before they can press forward onto another path they wanted to explore to begin with. So in a Metroidvania where you're expected to like split your exploration up into several paths potentially that branch off from each other, corpse running actually interferes with that, because if you die, then you're compelled again to go back to that path you were just on before exploring another path. And sometimes in some of these Metroidvania games, the ability to retread back to like the fork in the roads or the fork in the paths that you want to explore all has to be done manually. So corpse running takes away from the time you can spend on making further progress and exploring. And that's why people say like, oh, I'd just rather lose the money without a way to get it back. But that also poses its own problem, because when you die without even a means of getting the money back, it makes the player feel, okay, so this goes back to the tension point, right? Like, oh, friction tension, right? It makes the player feel like they're being discouraged from pressing into the unknown, because they'll be punished in some of their progress for that they would have made from having pressed into like an unknown.
Weak-willed. I'm joking.
Well, yeah. Well, hey, there's different angles to look at it from, right? But
yeah.
Point being, it's like feels discouraging, right? Because you're gonna lose permanent progress if you mess it up.
I agree. You want to go back to get your loot before you press on into the unknown. Like that is like a natural response. That's what I do.
Yeah. And to be honest, it's not like it's necessarily difficult to get back to your corpse. I'm not like implying that the difficulty is the thing that dissuades you from doing it. It's more so the time cost. It's more so the fact that you're compelled to do it. And when I say time cost, I'm not talking about getting the time to get to your corpse. I'm talking about the time, the valuable time you spent killing those enemies before, because that's what the corpse represents. It represents the time you took to kill those enemies before. And if you make like one small mistake, that time is gone. That, or what represents the time you spent, is gone, right?
True. I did at one point in Silksong have like 40k rosaries.
Wow.
Or not 40. I was going to say it was 4k. I'm going to say 4k.
Okay,
4k rosaries, not 40k. That would be absurd.
Oh, yeah.
4k rosaries. And I actually ended up being stupid and died a second time.
Yeah. And that's like, oh man, that time, you know? And again,
I did think of that. Yeah. I like put my head on my I keep saying almost saying elbow, forehead. And I was like, oh man, what did I do? I'm so stupid. Like I was not even trying to be careful to get it.
Yeah, and people say like, oh, that penalty that being present places like adequate tension on your actions. But I feel like if anything, that tension is misplaced. You already have tension from venturing into the unknown in some of these games because you literally don't know what you're going into, right? That's tension enough already to me by going into the unknown. And we're of course talking about a blind first playthrough. If you know what you're going into, then this is not for you. But if you don't know what you're going into, right? You have to manage your resources accordingly. And you die along that path, then you're basically like, sometimes you're like, I'm not sure if I want to go down there yet. Let me go down another path. But no, if you die along that path, you got to go back there, get all the hard-earned progress that you made up to that point before going on another path to decide whether you actually want to go down the first path that you died on. And that, to me, doesn't work well in a Metroidvania where you're compelled to explore, right? Because it's supposed to encourage you to explore. I feel like corpse running works actively against that and discourages you from exploring because you're instead thinking about protecting the valuable time that you spent clearing enemies. And if anything, instead of like, thinking about like, tension, friction, if anything, it just makes me play like unreasonably, stupidly safe. Like to me, like Waka has seen my gameplay in some of these Metroidvanias. I play like just like so slowly, so cautiously, like not really thinking about, I'm exploring down this path. I'm just thinking about like not dying, you know? Like that it doesn't feel like it works very coherently together with like proper exploring, you know, where you feel comfortable pushing all of your resources into like the path that you're exploring or something, or, you know, working to fight through all the obstacles that you're facing. Instead, you're just like, I want to not die, you know? Mm-hmm. And there's more to think about to it because I do think that it's not just the corpse running that discourages you from doing this. It's the idea of the game auto-saving when you die. When the game auto-saves, it also tends to save the consumables that you spent from the last time you saved. You don't get those back. That's also progress that you lose. And people's counter that I've seen is that, in games that you lose all the progress since you last saved when you die, isn't that the same thing? But if you didn't spend those resources at the time that you saved, then you actually get those resources back if you spent them before you died. Because it's not auto-saving since the point in which you died. And actually in those games, you're not forced to retraverse the area that you died in because there's not like any corpse that you got to go and retrieve. You can actually decide to go somewhere else and still retain all the resources that you had earlier in the game that you didn't spend because it goes back to that previous save that you had before. So I know this was long-winded to get across the point, but I did want to bring this up in this episode because I feel like it is somewhat related to how players
related.
Yeah. And if you had anything, feel free.
Yeah, you know, that kind of goes hand in hand with like modern day. I mean, the whole idea of runbacks came, like modern day runback came from corpse running. But me personally, you know, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you that it's like a detriment to the Metroidvania genre. Like it discourages exploration. You want to retrieve your corpse. Me personally, I'm not so sure about it. Like fully discourages you from exploring the unknown, but you definitely don't want to explore the unknown if you need to get back your money, because you don't want to lose all that time you spent trying to get your money, like building up your money. I mean, look at me. I wasn't being careful and I lost 4K, and I set it up so I didn't have to go grinding anymore. So like, because like Silksong, it's like feels like there's taxation everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. You need to have money on you all the time. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. It's almost like LA parking meters.
Oh my goodness, that is. Real.
I'm not even kidding. It kind of is.
Yeah.
But me personally, the concept of corpse running, I don't mind for like, I would say like 90% of the games, because that gives me incentive to be better at the game. Like, just be more careful, understand the enemies better, understand the environment better. The fact that there's some kind of punishment helps me try and engage with the game more. That like engage with the mechanics and try and do better at the game. That's just me. That's just me. But in the concept of the metroidvania, I do agree that it does actively go against the genre. Even though I love Hollow Knight, I love Silksong, it does actively go against the genre for exploration. I do agree with that.
Yeah, and actually in the Hollow Knight and Silksong context, I feel like it serves an even less valuable purpose for building up the tension than it does in Dark Souls. Because in Hollow Knight and Silksong,
you're not really pumping your money into stats. The only thing you can buy is like certain locations you might be able to buy like something like a piece of like a mask, I think it was called. I can't remember exactly what it's called. I'm bad with names of like items. Like, point is to something to increase your health, or something to increase your silk, or like your whatever it's called. I'll just call it like spirit, or like skill gauge for the first Hollow Knight. You might be able to get those in various shops, but it's not too many. Most of those you find within the world itself. It's not like a Souls game where you're actively pumping your souls into like building up your character's stats.
Yeah, it doesn't govern as much of what you're progressing with in the game. Like, to be honest, a lot of the expenditures that rosaries are tied to in Silksong is just basic quality of life, man. Like being able to use a save point, being able to use a fast travel
That's why
point.
I said, like, it's like a parking meter. That's all I'm saying. It's kind of like using a parking meter.
Like, and that to me makes having the corpse run in the game feel even less valuable. Like, it just feels like they just like tacked it in and said, "Here's your tension, guys," and like it just doesn't. To me, it doesn't provide real value. It just provides even more annoyance on top of it, right? Like, because in Dark Souls, like, again, I'm completely fine with corpse running in Dark Souls. Maybe my only gripe with it is that I think for me personally, in Retro or in Waka, you can decide how you want to respond to this, but I always just go straight back to my corpse. I don't try to like fight the enemies on the way again. Like, I always just try to go back to my corpse right away, get my money, and then maybe use a undead bone shard to go back to the bonfire if I had enough to level up. If I didn't have enough to level up, then I just go back to playing normally. But do you guys like fight the enemies again on the way, or do you just go straight there to your corpse?
90% of the time, I fight the enemies 90% of the time, and that's like even just any game that you can gain money or gain something to increase your levels. I'll usually opt to just like kill whatever I see, because every single little bit will help go towards it. Unless if it's something like it's so small now, like it's just like one or two like points of experience, or like very little money for this section of the game. It's like, forget it, I'll just like move past these guys. That's just me.
Retro?
I don't know. It just depends. I think I do a little bit of both. Depends on how annoyed I am. And yeah, like the first couple of deaths, I'll fight everything again. And then once I realize that the game is trash, I'll stop engaging with the game, right?
Yeah.
Run through everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You know what? That reminds me. Corpse running. Minecraft is a Souls-like, guys.
Oh,
because when you die, you lose your inventory.
Oh,
it does?
Yeah.
Wait,
your inventory scatters all over the ground. I didn't realize it, but I was like, wait a minute, that is.
There's actually like loot and corpse running in Minecraft.
Minecraft, you have an inventory because you're mining.
I didn't know
and
that.
if you die, you drop everything. You drop all your armor, all your weapons.
Wow.
And then
That
the
sounds
items
pretty brutal.
despawn
Like, what?
after a certain
This is
time.
brutal.
Yeah, it is pretty brutal.
That's brutal. I had no idea. Like,
and,
I just thought Minecraft was the funny creation game.
Okay, if you put it on easy
funny
mode,
creation game.
it actually stays in your inventory. It's you have player options. If you play on normal or hard, it's like the normal on death, you lose your inventory. But on easy mode, you don't lose your inventory.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Oh, God.
Can you believe that? Player options.
Yeah.
Player options. To suit whatever player you are. But I guess get good, right? Player option.
Yeah.
You're not good at the game. Just get good.
This is coming from someone who does like challenge and difficulty in games, and I know lots and lots of hardcore gamers are going to strongly disagree with me, but I do believe in multiple options, like difficulty options and like option boxes you can tick on or off to customize the experience for players. I don't see how it damages the players who just want to play that a little bit more challenging, a little more frustrating experience. Like, I don't see how that affects them. It's just more people can enjoy and play the game.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
It's interesting to hear you guys' perspective on that. Because, yeah, I don't have as strong feelings on corpse running in isolation as I did with the other two topics. But, it's a little too close to home when they start putting in more and more metroidvanias, and it doesn't really feel like they understand the purpose of it. Because again, in Dark Souls, that is like what you use for literally everything. That it like governs your whole gameplay experience is your souls, right? And also Dark Souls, modern Souls games are like, okay. Let's not generalize, but Dark Souls 3 is linear, right? Like, yeah, you can go on another path, but you eventually have to go back to like the main path, basically. And
it's mainly linear, but there's wiggle room to a degree, but ultimately it's linear. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, pretty much. And I know that some people are going to stretch the argument and say, oh, but doesn't that mean Metroidvanias are linear as well? That's not what I'm trying to say. Like, in Metroidvanias that do the non-linearity properly, there's actually like multiple paths you can go to from one spot that you're in. Whereas Dark Souls, those moments are very few and far between, and you can't really go that far along the path. Whereas if I'm thinking about Hollow Knight, you can go very far along a diverging path. In fact, you can, especially in after you get wall jump in Hollow Knight, like you can go like a lot of different places that all give you progress of some kind.
Dude, when I was playing Hollow Knight, when you were and I were originally both playing it, you dropped it and then you picked up like many months later, and I continued it. We were actually going two separate paths. I was actually surprised by the level of freedom it had for you to like, once you get that double jump, once you're able to traverse more.
Yeah, and they don't converge. Those paths don't quite converge. I mean, of course, they can converge if you want them to, but it's not like Dark Souls where it's like you beat the boss, then there's a dead end, and it gives you a MacGuffin, and then you have to go back to like the main path, right? Like, that's what I'm trying to say, basically. But even then, like, again, it serves like a fair purpose in those games, because that is the game, is clearing through the enemies and then using the souls to like build up your character, level up more. Leveling up more makes the game easier, blah blah blah. Excuse me, blah blah blah. And
it's all good noise.
That's how the game progresses. Whereas Hollow Knight 1, like, yeah, you can hold like a lot of money and just not have anything to use it on for a while because it's used on very specific things. And in Silksong, it's just like, oh, how can we find a way to make the player spend money? Oh, let's have it spent on the save points. Let's have it spent on the fast travel. Let's have it spent on the mapping and the quality of life features. Like, they just like had to put something in the game to make the player spend money on, because otherwise they'll just be holding too much, like the first game. That's how it feels to me. Because then the corpse running, like, not only is the corpse running kind of a whatever, because you're not even like fighting anything. You just like hit a cocoon once and you get back all your money. But then also, like, it just doesn't really have that same weight that I think people think that it has. And it just feels like it doesn't have as much value. And then on top of that, in Hollow Knight and Silksong as well, you can quit out to main menu at any time to go back to your last save point. That to me like removes any sort of semblance of tension that people think it has. because Dark Souls, if you try to quit to main menu like that, then it just de-aggroes, but you're still in the exact same spot you quit out from because it saves on the spot. But that's not the case in like these metroidvanias that use corpse running. So to me, like, it just feels like a kind of valueless mechanic that they add, and then the downside it provides ends up just outweighing the actual like potential tension that it's supposed to give. Is how I feel about it. Because okay, there's the other angle too. I was trying to think of, where it's like if the player doesn't have any repercussions to like failed experimentations, then there's like no consequences or whatever, right? But I don't think you have to place those consequences on dying. Like, I think you can just place it in terms of, oh, the thing in your inventory is just gone, or oh, you die, you lose progress since last time you saved. But it seems like a lot of modern gamers, especially from what I've seen on r/Metroidvania, don't like it when they lose their progress since the last save when they die, and they prefer the autosave plus the corpse run, which is strange. I don't know.
As someone who, this was like a pure naive, ignorant skill issue on my part, but when I was a kid, sometimes I would just be dumb and forget to save, and I died, and then I would get frustrated. But the thing is like, I personally prefer manual saves because you have that control of when you save or when you don't save. And now these days, I don't mind it. But for someone who was a kid, or for those other people, maybe not being careful, not like making multiple saves or something, I see that as being frustrating. But if you're being careful and actually managing your saves well, I see that as a non-issue.
Yeah, somewhere Aras is tilted about his inability to save during the Blade Chimera race.
Oh no! Wait, that happened
several times, more than once, several times.
Oh no!
Yeah. But you know, hey, you just got to be experienced in the art of saving sometimes. You know, yeah. Again, maybe that's a topic we should further explore and pursue in a future episode, like saving, just saving in a video game. But
can we really stretch it to be 2 hours? I'm actually being honest for saving.
Maybe not. We'd have to fit in with other topics for sure, but like it's something we can further explore
Save
later
states, like should have save states around. Well, suspend data where you actually, once you click it, you resume your game, but then that particular suspend data is deleted. Like, we could expand it.
Yeah. I mean, hey, there's always something to talk about, right? Which is why it's Discourse.
True.
All right, cool. Well, I'm looking at anything else that we could have talked about. But if feel free to get in anything you guys might have not gotten in that you want to right now.
I feel like backtracking and all these things that it's what am I expecting from the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, Minecraft, right? That is a survival sandbox game, correct? So, like, it's in the genre where like you're trying to survive, and if you die or you lose things, right? So even though, like, yes, it's annoying that in Minecraft when I die I might lose all my items, or I have to go backtrack all the way in the mines, right? Sometimes you can't even get back to where you died. There are plenty of scenarios like that, right? And then you really just lose all your items. But like, I'm coming in with that context, and I'm like, okay, this is the game, right? And it's like, it's survival genre, right? You're like, it's sandbox, open world, you build things, you lose things. So like, my expectation is like, that's it. It makes sense that it's in the game.
Yeah.
Right? Based on the context that the game has provided me, or is provided by the developer, right? Like, there's the reason is that it's a survival game, right? So then I go out and I'm like Dark Souls, right? What is the reasoning for having corpse running, right? Am I trying to survive? What is the main focus? Like, I always go back to like, what is the focus of the game? Right? And in Dark Souls, is the focus running back to your corpse, right? Because or just walking simulator? Because that's how I really feel. Like when I'm not fighting the bosses, like I feel like the focus is like I'm walking around and that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like these games out here, like I feel like they add in these mechanics because not for any game design reason. I literally think that it's added for the market. It's a market reason that this game has this mechanic so they could associate with a popular game title or some by association, a popular genre, right? Or it's put in so that it can draw in players or that player base, right? Because when they see Souls, like, oh, they're like Souls like, and then they click, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, this game is it's a, you know, it's a genre that I play because everyone's played Elden Ring, right? Everyone's played whatever From Software game. So when you put Souls like in the description, people are like, oh yeah, yeah, right? Like, oh yeah, I got to be part of that player base. I got to be part of that. I got to cash in on that market or that audience, right? So, which is why I feel like I'm such a hater, dude, because when I go out and I look at these new games releasing, instead of bringing in something new, something unique to them, right? Like in terms of game design, right? Game design, like someone sat down and thought up new ideas, right? No, they don't. All their creativity goes into aesthetics instead, right? Like the whole thing about like Hollow Knight and Silksong is not the game design, in my opinion. Oh, you're pogoing, I guess, question mark, right? It's the aesthetic, right? The game design is just, I feel like is not different from anything else, right? Which is why when I sit down and I'm like, wow, Hollow Knight is like really popular and everyone likes it, I'm like, from a game design standpoint, I'm like, why? Right? Like, what makes it stand out so much? And it's in actuality, I really think that they really pour everything into aesthetics. Like aesthetics, in terms of most people are king, I would say. Right? That is the driver of the game industry market right now is aesthetics. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. These backtracking things, they just pull in to like hit those keywords, those algorithm keywords in prayer that their game gets picked up by the gamer base, I guess, right? In terms of like a marketing scheme. That's like genuinely why I'm like, oh, From Software ruined the gaming industry with these backtracking and Souls like tags, dude, and this difficulty ego, where like lack of quality of life conflates with difficulty and how much of a gamer you are, right? I'm like, man, holy crap, dude. Because that's what I think backtracking at the end of the day, like these runbacks, it's lack of quality of life, right? In those games, okay, you're right, it does make tension. In games where I can just save state, there's no tension. It really isn't. I don't care, dude. If I jump down this pit, I don't care because I can just press F2 and reload the save where I wasn't jumping down the pit, right? So there's no tension. Any game with save states, I'm like, I don't care. I'll just do whatever I want. And it makes me explore. It makes me do the non-optimal stuff, right? It's actually backwards. The less quality of life you put it, for me, at least, makes me want to do exploration less. So for like Metroidvanias, where the whole point is exploring, that Castlevania game I'm playing, what is it called?
Harmony of Dissonance.
Harmony of Dissonance. Where I don't want to open that game up because like I'm like, man, every time I don't find the save room and I have to re-go through like 30 rooms because my routing is trash, I'm not incentivized to explore anything. I just want to get a map with every single save point and just go beeline those save points. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm getting punished for quote-unquote exploring because I'm not finding these save points. I am exploring, but I'm not getting any of these save points, right? So I just die and I lose all my progress. So I feel like, and these Metroidvanias are coming out with corpse running. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
I'm like, not only are you making the quality of life worse, which makes exploration like, in my opinion, anytime you make quality of life worse, you're de-incentivizing the player to explore because they don't want to die, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're putting all these knowledge checky enemies where they kind of just like hit you or Mario Maker game, level design, Like I even want to explore less. If you put Igarashi walls that are required for like, why would I want to play a game like this? But do people like it apparently? So I don't know, dude. I genuinely like. I'm so confused about what people like. Like I feel I genuinely feel out of touch because Silksong has these breakable walls that I would completely be frustrated with. I'd be like, oh my goodness, these breakable walls, man.
So many of them.
On top of backtracking, on top of corpse running, on top of losing, your recurrency when you die. Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
And people are, piloting what was it? Parroting that this game is like the best game ever. I'm like, really? Like, yeah, it has me doing the freaking turnaround emote. Like, I genuinely confused. It's like people want no quality of life. Like, it's something that they want from their game. Like, I'm like you said, no one's complaining about having a save point right before the boss. No one says anything, right? Yeah. Whenever it's in a game.
Yeah.
It's like, how are these games selling millions? How, dude? How is Going Up by Benny Fodder selling millions? Right? Like, dude, maybe it didn't sell millions, but it definitely sold quite a bit.
Yeah.
I just don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm out of touch.
Man, I guess it is the sense of familiarity with regards to what you said, like putting in corpse running. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that, like from when I played Dark Souls 1 several years ago. Like, trying to grab that player base is definitely from the sense of familiarity. There was one other thing. So I was thinking about this. Roguelites, right? Roguelikes and roguelites. Permadeath, obviously. And not just permadeath.
Okay, I have nothing to say with that because I have not dove into that genre like at all. So I'll let you guys talk about that.
So these games are centered around the idea that you have to start from the very beginning. But why is that something that very few players are ever at odds with? They know what they're getting into, is part of why. But why? What is the other reason why? And I've thought about this a little bit more. And I think especially for modern roguelites, it's the fact that you still make some kind of progress. You feel the idea of like, hey, I made it farther than last time. Or hey, I unlocked something, right? Those are what keep you like motivated to try to make it further, and get to that last boss. Hades 2 just came out, and this is one of the best selling games of the year. Probably in contention for game of the year at the end of the year. Regardless, this is a roguelite, right? And ordinarily, especially in the context of what we discussed today, it would probably be something that we'd be extremely at odds with, the idea of having permadeath and having to start all over from the beginning. But no, I think if you actually look at this discussion with more nuance, you understand why exactly, not only do I not personally have a problem with it, but a lot of players don't have a problem with having to start from the beginning. And again, it's because you have that sense of having made progress already, like from the unlocks, from the meta progression, from just the comparing to your previous run in general. And to begin with, a lot of rogue-like games are not actually rogue-like because they have runs that are connected with each other with some kind of unlocks mechanism or whatever. Whereas proper roguelikes, I don't want to get into semantics on this episode, but proper roguelikes will have each run be like distinct from each other pretty much. Which, that doesn't really exist in as frequent of a release as perhaps in the past. But to begin with, why are all these roguelite deck builders and just roguelites in general like popping off so much, right? You start over from the beginning. Well, when you combine the idea of unlocking something with presenting the player with the opportunity at seeing what they could be at like a high power level of a run, then that's like the motivation to try to replicate that. Like when I think back to like my first Isaac runs, it's like, yo, this run is like so powerful. I'm like one-shotting everything, right? And you want to try to replicate that. But when you're new and like when you're starting out, your ability to replicate that is not as high because you're just not skilled at the game. But the better you get at the game, the more runs you do, the more items you see and experiment with, the more you're able to replicate a run that wins. And it might not necessarily be as flashy as those runs that were one-shotting every enemy as the first time you did that, but you're able to make it farther consistently without relying on those things. And that is like something that a lot of people appreciate when they play a video game in general, is like the sense of reward for making progress and getting there consistently, especially when the game supposedly presents them with a difficult hurdle to overcome, which in this case is the permadeath. So I did want to mention that in this episode because I think that is a nuanced distinction from everything that we've been talking about up to this point. And I don't necessarily think roguelites are 100% like, oh, you need to be good at this game in order to win a run. You don't need to be good at a roguelite to win a run. You don't we're not going to get too caught up in the difficulty argument, but you don't need to be proficient in what the game has for all of its abilities in order to be able to make it far. In fact, the first couple times, sure, you might just need to get lucky or something, but being able to chase after that time and time again is what allows for people to replay it until they, eventually make it as far as they wanted to and get tired of it. And that's perhaps why games like Hades 2, like Isaac, like Slay the Spire have been able to succeed as much as they have up to this day. Retrorage.
Well, if we wrap roguelites around the concept of backtracking, because technically they kind of are, because you repeat every night, you repeat the quote unquote same things, right?
Right.
Every run. But like I feel like the difference is that in these backtracks like Dark Souls and like Metroidvania backtracks or like corpse running, I'm like doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed about anything except maybe I changed my inventory or whatever, or I lose some stuff. Like nothing's really changing, and there's no like challenge, right?
Yeah.
It's just there's no purpose. It's like purposeless thing. If I removed it from the game, would I feel better or worse? Like I wouldn't. I just it could be removed without me feeling bad about it, right?
Right.
Like for example, like you said about Elden Ring, putting those statues, like. It got put in, and nobody was like, "Where are my elevators that I have to sit 15 seconds in, right, to get to the boss?" No one's saying that, right? So when you can pull something out and have nobody say anything, that's like a sign that is not a thing, or I would say that it's not like a great thing to have in your game, right? When you can pull it out and nobody misses it, right? Now, of course, not always true. But like I would say that. So for like roguelikes, for example, Slay the Spire. I've played a lot of Slay the Spire, right? And I'll tell you this. Doing Ascension 20 runs, there are people that like doing that, right? There are the people that like enjoy trying to craft the broken build that they need to beat true Ascension 20, right? But like I think the best flavor of Slay the Spire is Ascension 0, maybe not even true ending. Like Ascension 0 true ending is a question mark, but like just Ascension 0 ending, right? Because yes, you are doing the same thing over and over again, but you're given like different tools.
Yeah.
Like imagine a Metroidvania where like you die, and when you go back to the place that you're trying to get to, the rooms have all shifted, right? So like your approach to getting to that area, yes, your end goal is the same, but the path to get there is different, quote unquote, different every time.
Yeah.
Right? So, which is why, like, it's like a backtrack in the sense that the goal is the same, but the way you've gotten there, it's different, right?
Yeah.
Theoretically. So, I think that's why it's not a problem, right? Because when people, they restart, they're like, okay, I'm going to get a different set of tools, and I'm going to do something different to try to win.
Yep.
Versus like in a Metroidvania, are you really doing anything different to like get there, right? Are you really doing anything different or changing the way you do something to like progress? I don't know, right? It's like your decisions don't change, but maybe your execution gets better. And in that sense, it's dragging, right? It's like a drag, like a fighting game combo. Why are fighting games not played, right? Like if I'm just having to sit in the training mode and just up my execution, maybe that's not a very appealing thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm stretching it a little too far, but I think that's when it gets like tedious, like it's homework, right? Where like I'm like, oh, I died, now I gotta go back, right? Now I gotta go back,
Yeah.
and like try to do it all over again. Versus in a roguelike, you're like, oh, I died, cried, I lost the run, right? That I lost the seed generation or the luck that I got in that run, and I go, okay, time to roll the slot machine. Slot machine. Okay, how about this? In a roguelike, you can always blame luck. You don't have to blame yourself.
That's part of it. That's part of it. Yeah.
So it's like you instead of saying, "Oh, I was bad," I could say, I just got unlucky." Run it again.
Yeah.
Slot machine again. Versus in like these other games, there's no slot machine. You're just bad.
or the game is just bad, actually.
Yeah, the games. I never blame myself. I always blame the game, right?
Yeah. And actually, to that point, like, yeah, I think you said it pretty much nail on the head with the roguelite angle. But to that point, with the Elden Ring, I also never see anyone complain in Celeste about restarting exactly where you die, like, or like at the room where you die, pretty much. Like, it's just interesting. It's just wondrous. Like, people will defend to death some of these extremely questionable backtracks to boss or long stretches of no save points. But then when there's games that just allow for the punishment to be minimalized, but still have strong and difficult execution, no one's complaining about it. No, like, people are having fun, having a chill time. And Celeste is a beloved game, all the same, right?
That's because the tension doesn't come from the lack of
good features.
QOL.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Attention actually genuinely comes from the game being difficult.
Yes.
Like the actual game design, like the actual game being difficult rather than some design choice that could be removed or put in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just do people that connection between quality of life and difficulty is like is ooh,
No,
I don't know about that one, dude.
Yeah.
I think the average gamer has not really sat down enough about game design to really like understand the difference, right? In my opinion.
Yeah.
Like they've really like sat down, like they are consumers and that is it, right?
Right.
I don't know, question mark, right? Because if you really sit down and think about it, right? If your game becomes easy once you put quality of life, then was your game really difficult to begin with? Right.
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we can reinvestigate and re-explore further in a potential difficulty discussion. But if Waka, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I'm going to add that. Oh, first let me drink some water. Need to drink some water to cut my throat.
Oh yeah. Water.
Alrighty. Yeah, I come from, background where it's like, I try and see, what was the decision made and why, why they did that, and not necessarily maybe comes from my background culturally. I'm not sure, but I try not to complain, and how I see, corpse running is, I echoed this sentiment many times. It's just an incentive for me to get better. Yes, I believe it does discourage exploration, but it encourages me instead to explore the mechanics so that I can better prevent me from dying, whether it be really get like whether it be really understanding so I can be the boss with minimal effort, or come to the section of the game with minimal effort. That's just me. I see it completely different. And yes, I agree that probably many of people, it's like, what's really popular with like gamers right now, Souls-like. What's really popular with the indie game crowd, metroidvanias. If you combine the two, you're probably going to make a lot of money, and it's probably driven more by marketability, where they can sell it, than actually trying to create something new. Like, I admit, Hollow Knight and Silksong, it really doesn't do anything new like I've said this many times, it really doesn't do anything new. It's not necessarily a groundbreaking game in the sense that it introduced it, things new to the table. But I do think, how should I put this? That the corpse running, backtracking in that game, how it's done with the runbacks, it is definitely a detriment to the metroidvania genre for exploration. Like there's, you want to get your currency back. You want to avoid going to a new area before you do that. You're maybe more cautious. But on the flip side, this is me. I rather there be a game that, if I'm playing for me to like understand mechanics and trying to, you're gonna laugh, but get good. Get good at the game. I like there to be some kind of punishment as an incentive for me to actually engage with those mechanics, like really understand the game, if that makes sense. Like I use this, this is probably not the best example because it's like basically the polar opposite of what we've been talking about. But although I think Kirby's Epic Yarn, such a beautiful, charming game, it remains to be my least favorite Kirby game because I did not care if I died. I did not care at all if I died or did well in that game, like at all, like zero, nada.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have too much enjoyment playing that game. Like, I may sound counterintuitive, like kind of crazy, saying like, "Oh, you're being punished. How are you having fun?" The reason why is because I guess it does create some kind of tension, enough so for me to actually care about being good. And if it's like, I don't want to lose my money, I just gotta get better. If I don't want to run back, I just gotta get better. If I don't want to keep dealing with this boss, I gotta figure out how to beat the boss. That's just how my mind works. And that's what I want to add.
Yeah, great point there. Epic Yarn, don't worry, that's not controversial at all. That's probably one of the easiest Kirby games in the series. And that's for a series that's already pretty easy. So
it is, yes. I love Kirby games. Like, are you kidding me? I love Superstar Ultra 64. Like, those are some of my favorite Kirby games. But Epic Yarn was like, you're talking baby easy. That's basically a fetus easy.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah.
It's like
yeah. For all those Dark Souls players, they should play Kirby Superstar Ultra True Arena.
You know what? Now that you've mentioned it, now that Waka's mentioned it about, you know what I think the real issue is? Now that you've mentioned about learning the mechanics or whatever from games, right? I genuinely think the reason, having the randomly generated part of games adds, I feel like it adds depth to your loss, right? And let me elaborate more on what I mean by depth to the loss, right? When I lose in Slay the Spire or some roguelike or Splunky, very frustrating game Splunky is, right? Super frustrating, right? But because it's randomly generated, there's a lot of different decisions that led up to the end result of what happened, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, in Binding of Isaac, maybe had I not used the bomb to blow up the tinted rock, I could have used the bomb on something else in a later room that I hadn't yet explored, right? Yeah. Which goes into player skill, right? Instead of shotgunning decisions early, maybe you explore the entire floor in Binding of Isaac before you use your resources, right? Or you can use your resources early to get the Spirit Heart to protect your deal or whatnot. Things like that, right? In these randomly generated games. Mm-hmm. So when you lose in these randomly generated games, you can think about your loss, and there's actually a lot of decisions that you made that could have changed the result.
Oh yeah.
Right? Versus I died in Dark Souls to this boss, right? Or I died in a Metroidvania by falling down for there's no you just executed wrong, right? There's no really like thought process to it. There's no depth to your death, right? You just execution bad. Now I got to run it back again, right? Kind of, which makes it more frustrating because it's not really like, oh, I necessarily chose or did something wrong. I just like I didn't press the button at 0.1 second, little time frame, and now I gotta retry it again, right? And now I have to go through the entire process of doing X, Y, and Z to get a chance to do the execution right. I don't know. That kind of thought. I was like, okay, like maybe it's not really an issue of backtracking necessarily, but like the depth of the game itself, right? When you die, like what is the thought in your head when you die, right? At that moment. Right? For like roguelites, it's like, okay, maybe some people don't have any thoughts and they just run it up again, right? But like maybe the frustration could be like less if the game's depth was actually like there was a deeper like game design in the death of your player or like dying in the game, right? Versus just money lose, guys. I gotta go back. Money lost. Yeah. I gotta go back.
Yeah, that is a good point. Like you have all these things that happen after your death that make you like distracted from thinking about like what actually made you die. Whereas in like these roguelites, like you just die and you just start over again, right? So you got to really like, well, the reflection point, like that's per player. I feel like a lot of people don't reflect in roguelites; they just run it back right away. But you could reflect, right? And if you do reflect, it'll be like, oh, I could have done this here, could have done this here. Like there's a lot of decision making that you could have fixed and given yourself a better chance to win the run in, right? Because in Isaac, for example, every run is winnable if you're good, right? But you gotta be good in order to win technically every run or whatever. Whereas I don't know if those skills are exactly required to get through a Metroidvania or even a Souls-like. Like people claim that, oh, I am good at hard games. I beat Souls games, Elden Ring, Dark Souls 3, Hollow Knight. Like those games, like just saying you beat those games doesn't represent anything. Yeah.
Like controversial take. I know I keep saying difficulty is relative. It's going to be different for each person. But me personally, I really don't think any of those games are really that difficult. They're kind of like average difficulty in the lens of like a retro game, if you ask me. And there's plenty of retro games that are actually much difficult, more difficult, like Ghosts and Goblins. That's one that Retrorage mentioned. That's one of them. I think the original Castlevania is harder than any of the Metroidvania Castlevania games, and Hollow Knight and Souls-like games too.
Yeah, I guess we can try to revive this conversation, resurrect this conversation for the next topic that involves difficulty. But yeah, I think I agree. Like it's just like that also just begs the question: does having high punishment make a game difficult, or is difficulty and punishment separate? And how do people see difficulty with respect to decision making or execution, right? But like those are all questions that we'll have to pose and answer at the appropriate time. Okay, we can close it off though. I think we got a good deal of discussion in for the 3 hours that we spent. So yeah,
wait, we should have like a wrap up.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap up. Yeah.
Make sure to give the booty plug.
True, but I think what if I were to have something to say to like developers, like after this discussion about like backtracking, corpse running, and like runbacks, is like I think that if you were to take away something from me about the topic that we're discussing today, is that if you're going to add these things, I feel like developers really need to think about why they're adding it, and does it like push the player. Okay, at the end of the game, it's all about fun, right? But like, does the thing that you're including actually help the player in the long run, right? For whatever is like happening in your game. So if you're gonna add corpse running, like, does it actually improve the fundamental skills of what you want the player to have when they're playing your game, right? Like, if that's like my intake developers, please really think about if you're gonna add these things that kind of act as like punishment or like lack of quality of life. Really think about it. Really think about it. Right, and please don't use it's the narrative. You're like, immersion is the reason, right? Like, okay, I guess you can cope out with that answer because like, what can I say to that? I can't say anything to that, right? If immersion is like a narrative is like the reason why you're doing it, okay, like there's nothing to discuss, right? But like, I just really think about it. Really think about it. That's what I and Retrorage end statement about the topic here.
Yeah, I like it. Good synthesis. Okay, what I have to say, yeah, I mean, kind of piggybacking off of that, I don't think developers should make compromises on good features at the expense of, I don't think immersion should come at the expense of good features. However, I do think that immersion is important and can be done without trading off the good features. You can always make an excuse that makes the game not feel frustrating to play and still provides immersion. Like, those things don't need to like be like, oh, am I trading one for the other or whatever? Or do I need to make sure the game informs the placement of these things to feel artificial or whatever? Artificial is just whatever the developers decide to put in the game. Like, like, I don't know. But on top of that, I do think the core takeaway for me is make the time that the player spends in your game meaningful. Like, make it time well spent. Games are, as Retrorage said, meant to be fun. And not only do you want your game to be fun, but you want your game to leave a lasting impact on the player that causes them to leave with like, great gratitude or great happiness, and potentially wants them coming back for more. Like maybe whatever you work on in the future, or even the very game itself, right? So try to leverage that as much as you can. Whatever hook you have that your player can latch onto, try to make sure that it leads them to believe that, they had a great time playing your game. And I guess if you consider these things that we've talked about a great time for the game, then so be it. Tough one. You won't be having as many customers with that kind of thing, but maybe point to be proven against me because soulslikes are so popular nowadays. But point being, try to make your game fun and try to respect the player's time. Waka, anything you want to leave as a takeaway?
No. I have a similar sentiment. If you have like a backtrack visiting area, have it be meaningful, not waste the player's time, and actually really reevaluate if those mechanics really work with the type of game you're making, as well as have it be an enjoyable experience. You want to have a positive, takeaway from the game instead of a negative one.
Yeah. All right. Well, excellent. I mean, hey, another thing I've learned is that some games can do no wrong.
You know what? Okay, if you're gonna put frustrating stuff in your game, just say it. Just say it as a dev. And you know what? I'll actually not say
it's a feature.
I will not say anything against it, right? If you just say, I want my game to be frustrating and I want to frustrate the player, you know what? Based. I will accept that as the answer for your game being frustrating. If you're like, oh yeah, I put in backtracking because I want the player to be frustrated every time you die. You know what? Great answer. Instead of immersion. Instead of telling me immersion, just tell me that you want the deaths to be frustrating, and I will gladly accept that answer. Okay, you know what?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, folks.
I'm just saying. I'm reading this Team Cherry thing that I have in front of me, and I'm like, I'm getting triggered. I'm getting rage baited. Yeah. I'm getting rage baited.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, either watching or listening. If you are watching the YouTube premiere, I really appreciate that as well. Do feel free to leave a subscription and a like, and feel free to leave a comment. What do you guys think about how backtracks, corpse runs, and runbacks are handled in modern video games? Do you think we should do away with them entirely? Do you think that we handle the discussion appropriately with the right precision? Give us your thoughts in the comments, please. And of course, make sure to show the love as well to our lovely fellow podcasters Prince Waka and Retrorage for joining me along in this episode. We've got we've got some more folks that will be joining us as well for future episodes. So don't make sure that you don't want to miss those future episodes as well. We'll be trying to get our next set of podcast episodes in the coming future. So look forward to it. See you all then. Goodbye.
Wishlist bootsies.
Yep. Bye, Bootsies.
Yes.
Buy Bootsies. Not just buy Bootsies, buy multiple copies. Share it with your friends. Spread the love.
Yes.
Bootsies world domination. All right. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.